for coming on the podcast here tonight, Mr. Bryan Tobin. How are you?
Not a problem. I mean, I'm doing okay. You know, I'm just starting up my own.
Yeah.
And then I find it hard now. Like, it's almost like I am a 90s celebrity coming back on tour, but no one wants me to be back on tour. I feel like I'm J-Lo, where it's just they're like, do you want to be a part of my documentary? It's like, no, I don't. Just tell them I'm on tour. And then she's sitting there like, nobody wants to be a part of my thing. It's like, because you weren't that big. Like, you had a couple of hits. So that's how I feel. It's like I'm sending out emails like, hey, do you think this person? No. And I'm just like, you didn't even take the time to read the email. I just sent it.
Well, it's better. We don't even get no's. We just get no response at all.
Lots of that, yeah. Lots of ghosting.
Yeah, and I've been told that. Like, I've been told by my friends, like, as soon as I'll post something on, like, Facebook, I'm like, another rejection. Don't think, what's it, like, Beetlejuice? It's like, don't think Michael Keaton's coming on. He's like, how did you even get him to respond? I'm like, A, is not actually Michael Keaton that responds.
Yeah.
And B, is just it's their PR team. But it's like 10:06 sent, and then like 10:10, I'm just like, buddy, I can't even read my own message that fast. It's like, it's almost like they just look up, is Michael Keaton? No. And I'm just like, but you didn't know. I'm like, okay, but what about if I'm dead? No. I'm like, okay, never mind.
That's the hardest part, though, of doing it.
It's hard.
Of doing it all yourself, right? You're the one got to make the effort and throw those fish lines out there, and hopefully someone says yes, and you get them to come on, right?
I feel like we all have to find our own hidden talent and then do podcasting on the side. Like we feel like you got to find something. Like I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, man, I should do like the Logan Paul approach, where it's just like, do something else, become a really good wrestler, and then like, make it to WWE, have a title run or so, and then do my podcast. And then people are like, why did you give up wrestling? I'm just like, I didn't ever want to be a wrestler. I want to be a podcaster. This is the only way to be successful.
Gotta become popular in a different way.
Yeah, you gotta have a few extra aces in the back pocket, right?
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, just like you retire from the NFL or something at like 35, and they're like, you had so much. I'm just like, this was never my interest. I'm like, I just wanted you guys to know that I had a podcast. Like, well, why didn't you just work really hard at that? I'm like, I did. No one paid attention, so I had to go over and spend the last 5 years of my life, never spoke to my nieces, my nephews, had to become a pro football player, and now you guys notice me.
Yeah, no, it seems like
it's tough, man.
For the celebrities, it's like so easy. You just jump in, and all of a sudden you got all the best A-list celebrities on your podcast and shit like that. But
it's like
on the ground floor, it's so hard. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you got to fight through 10 people.
Yeah, it's like, what's it? Demi Lovato I think it's Demi. He came out with a podcast and she's just talking about child actors. Now, I could be dead wrong on that one, but it's like I looked at her first couple of episodes. I think it's premiering on Hulu or whatever. So Demi, I just gave you a plug. But anyway, it's just it's like Raven Simone is on, and I'm just like, dude, I've asked for Raven for 4 years. She probably just called up Raven on a goddamn given Sunday morning and Raven, yeah, it's like, podcast, you in? Gotcha, babe. And I'm like, okay, I can't do that with anyone. Maybe Rick Campanelli, but even Rick Campanelli, every now and again, I'm sure he's like, Tobin, just leave me alone. I got kids. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, but Rick is a good guy though. Hey, he was on our podcast as well, and he.
I seen that. I seen you talked about Woodstock '99. And I'm just like, oof. I'm like, that's a good conversation.
Yeah.
Because mostly mine is just they're like, I think I've talked to Rick twice where it was just about his career. I don't know if I got into Woodstock just because, again, I'm only 8 when Woodstock happens, right? When that one did. So it's like I've seen it on TV, but I think the aftermath was more. Yeah, he did talk a little bit about the aftermath, but I mean, I'm 8, so I'm just like, just show me some more Backstreet Boys. I don't want to. I don't want to see people getting stretchered out.
Yeah,
it's just it's like Woodstock '99 was a brutal idea, bad idea, and I think even Ed the Sock was like, yeah, shit, and I was just that's great, but I'm just I wasn't really paying attention. I'm just like, next video was Backstreet Boys. I'm like, and the world is good again.
Everything is awesome.
Yeah. He was always the one go-to for those Backstreet Boys and NSYNC
videos. It's funny too. Yeah. Because I don't think I'm sure he's a fan in a way, but I think he's more of a metal or whatever, say rock and roll guy or whatever. Then you get stuck with the boy bands, which is it's funny and makes it interesting, really.
Yeah. I feel like with his story though, it's interesting because you can't do that these days. I've said now, when I was growing up and I wanted to become like, because you're watching them on TV and you're like, this is like the best thing in the world to do. And it's in Toronto, and then they had like their own Much Music Video Awards, and like, man, I'd love to do this. And like you see the evolution of broadcasting, or just like journalism, I guess, and all is changing. So it's like that's not even a criteria anymore. I was like in high school, and then they were changing it to like showing you dramas and less music, and I was like, my career is slowly going away. And then it's like you finish sports journalism, and it was just like next minute I turn on like Hockey Night in Canada, and they're like PK Subban and Bieksa and all these guys. I'm just like, all right, I'm fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Even when they had Strombolopoulos in there too, it's like, well, oh damn, that was a good pivot for him too to go from.
I thought it was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but like even Strombo to the expense of like, I feel like, but Strombo was like, okay, we got a guy who likes hockey. He's not a Toronto fan. Doesn't matter that he's not a Toronto fan, but like people will just be like, well, he's not a Toronto fan, so he's not pro-Toronto. It's like, okay, but he's still Toronto TV. Right. And then plus it's just like, it's more of he's done interviews. He's interviewed more than just athletes. So, and it's not like you're asking him to come in and give you a breakdown of hockey. You're just asking him to basically do what like a James Duthie or something would do. Is just do a hosting job, which he's done. And like I thought it did well. I think we had him on and he basically said like he thinks it was just a bad time because Canadian teams weren't doing well, which is true. And it's just like the whole dynamic of what they wanted to do and what they said they were going to do, and then they didn't. And I was like, I didn't even mind George being on TV, to be honest with you. It's just like the shit that I didn't like is you have, I don't know, who was it, like Glenn Healy or whoever was trying to show you like, this is how I would stand in net. And I'm just like, and then they show you a net and it's like, oh yeah, because I'm a complete idiot and I've never seen a hockey net or a hockey goalie before. Like, you know, or it's like, this is how I would shoot a puck. I'm like, oh my God, that's what I've been doing the whole time wrong. I haven't been shooting the guy. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, I know how to shoot a puck. I don't need all these visual effects. Then you got Kiprios be like, I would corner hole him and do this and hook him. I'm just like, and that is why you're a broadcaster.
Yeah. There was a lot of, I think, the whole dynamic of CBC Sports was changing too, because they got rid of Don Cherry and stuff like that. And I think there was just, no matter what they did after that, they were going to get some flack for whatever they were doing.
Yeah, and there's growing pains, which makes it turn out like shit too, to a certain degree, right? Because you can have $1 bajillion, but if you kind of don't know what you're doing still, you still don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like they're just picking people that they thought would be cool personalities to put together. And it was okay, but like I get what you're saying. Like Healy drove me nuts, man.
Yeah, like, never a fan of Glenn Healy.
It's just there's some point in times that you'll go back on like YouTube and just look up old clips, and one of the funniest ones that I've actually showed my nephew, who's only like I guess 10 or 11, but you know he's looking at it and being like, why are you showing me a clip that's not hockey related, that's more broadcasting? I'm just like, but just look at it, just tell me if you can kind of sense where guys don't blend in or mesh. And I think it was like they were talking about what's his name now, that's like big mouth that I think he's still coaching Philadelphia. It's Tortorella.
Tortorella.
But it's like they were talking about how Tortorella had his say, and Elliot Friedman was like, we had our say as media. Like, we can dig at him, but he's allowed to dig at us. And then Healy is over there like, how dare you? Like looking at his face like, I can't stand you, Friedman. And I'm just like, he's not wrong. Like, if you're going to go after an NHL coach or anyone, they're allowed to come after you in the media.
Yes.
But like Healy was like, he's a piece of shit. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, who is Friedman? Or it's like they both are. And I'm just like, relax. Like there's times that it's like with Ron, and I think Ron tries his best to appeal to a younger audience, but I can't remember. Like I'm sure there's going to be points of the season that you'll see it, but there was one that it was Bieksa, him, Bottrell on a panel, and there was something that Bieksa said. And he came back and said something, and then they panned right to Bottrell, and Bottrell's face was like, I don't agree with that. Like, she just kind of like looked like, what the fuck are we talking about? And I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, maybe don't cue to the girl or the female when you're talking about a female topic. Like, just let her have her say. Yeah. But the way they presented it was almost like, here's two males talking about a female's topic. And then she was like upset about it. I'm like, yeah, because neither one of you asked her. And she is supposed to be your female voice on this panel.
Yeah. I do vaguely remember. I can't specifically remember what topic they were talking about, but I do remember an instance where she had me like kind of scowl like what are you fucking talking about, you
I
idiot?
think now I could be wrong, but it could have been something about like they were talking about tarps, like like the term tarps off or something.
I believe it was. I've seen this clip. I'm sure now that you say that it was. I think.
And then BX was just making like a joke because BX kind of reminds me of that jock who tries to be funny. And then it's just like, okay, you might have 3 or 4 good jokes, but the rest of it, you're just overkilling. And then Ron was like trying to like be like, oh yeah, and I'm your class clown that like tags along the jock. And then like Bobchill is like kind of like the smart girl in the class who's almost like, can you guys just shut the hell up and just do what we're supposed to do here?
Oh man, yeah, no, it's good though. I can't wait for hockey to start again. I'm
gonna give it an honest crack again. I don't know. Like I grew up playing hockey and I am a fan of it, but I find since these people have left CBC and stuff, I find it hard to watch, man. Like I hate like the broadcasters drive me nuts to a certain degree. Like most of the time, like it's not the same. Like the normal broadcast, like the play-by-play is fun or whatever. But then like all the other bullshit around it, it's like, man, like you don't need any of that. Like he's already telling me what's going on. Like there's a guy that tells me what's going on the whole fucking time. You don't need to get into it all this nuttery.
So I like TSN's broadcasts a lot more, like especially when they used to have like right up until like the first or second round of playoffs. Now I think TSN does a good job of implementing like their hirees or like, because the first few times that we've had a few on, I've asked them like, like where did they start? And then they'll tell you like they start at like the night shift. So it could be like Sports Center at like 2 a.m. So you're not really seeing them, but that's how they get their feet wet. And then they'll eventually be going like 8 o'clock in the morning or 6, and they'll work their way through. Right. So it's like, everyone knows, say Kate Burness, but it's like at one point, Kate Burness was like a no-namer on Sports Center at like 1 a.m. and you're like, all right, I'm turning this off. But it's like, that's where she, worked her way up. And now it's like when they do women's hockey, it's like, yeah, I'm okay with an all-female panel. Not that it matters to me. It's not like, oh, Bryan Tobin's not okay with it, so close it down. It's like, no, it doesn't bother me. But it's just to like, you look at him, you're like, you know what? Like, that makes sense for Kate Burness, because I feel like in terms of like women's hockey, she's probably like a James Duthie type for like hosting. And then like she surrounds herself with a panel like of, former women players or broadcasters. I'm like, absolutely. And if people got a problem with it, I'm just like, you don't have to watch it, but it makes sense for, kids out there now that are watching. I watch like some of the professional women's games when they're on, and I'm like, I'm not offended that you don't have a male broadcaster. Like, some people are like, well, we'll just have one male voice. I'm just like, it'll probably come in time. But like, let them get their feet wet to kind of establish themselves.
Yeah, man, make them give them a career, right? Like the same as we did to everybody.
Yeah.
All these people that we watched growing up and everything, and even now, I mean, right? No, I agree with you on that. I'm quite impressed with it. Like, I mean, growing up, like Dad had always coached like the girls hockey and the female hockey and stuff, right? So like I was around it a lot, so it was very normal, like to me. Like, and I find it weird that people are like, oh, it's like, I mean, it don't have to be for everybody. That's not the point either. But it is good to watch, man, and it's good that they get to be able to do it, because like playing against a 300-pound dude and this 175-pound woman is not going to equate to good hockey, whatever way you look at it, right? So no, it was wicked. I think it's awesome. What do you think of the new logos and all that stuff? They finally, you know what I mean? They kind of got on board this year.
I think some of those names and logos are like interesting. Like I don't even know what Toronto's is. It like Spectrum or something? Like I felt like the first time I read it, I was like, are you calling me special? Like, am I on the spectrum? Like, what are you saying? And then like so Toronto Maple Leafs, like, just so everyone's clear, this is what it means. And like, that didn't make it any clearer for me. Like some of these ones are like, they're nice. I think some of the logos are really good, but and I think they did a good job in terms of like the first year, they're kind of like, we're going to have a league. We're just going to call it Toronto, Minnesota. And people were just kind of like, what the hell? But I'm like, it kind of gave them a whole year to say, all right, what's our identity? What are some things that we can name it? And, I think some of them hit it right on the head. And then there's other ones I'm just like, no, what are you thinking? But it's just like Utah, like for the NHL, the Utah Hockey Club, I'm just like, give me a goddamn break. I'm just like, you asked fans what they wanted to call it. They gave you options. Just be honest and be like, you guys' opinions suck. This is what we wanted to do. Like, Utah Hockey Club, I'm just like, you're not ready. You're not ready.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just said, listen, like, give us a hockey team maybe next year. Or if you knew you were going to get Arizona, because, I mean, that's not an overnight thing. You probably knew that about months ago. Like, have it ready. That's all we're asking. Like, I thought Utah Blizzards was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then people were like, Utah Yetis. I'm just like, what are we like? No, that just sounds like ridiculous.
Oh yeah. No.
But then again, there's Pittsburgh Penguins, and I don't think there's Penguins in Pittsburgh. And then someone's going to be like, I told you Tobin was an idiot. Like, maybe at a zoo. At a zoo, maybe.
What I don't even I maybe glanced at the women's hockey league team names, but I don't even.
I'm trying to find them here, but it just keeps bringing me to articles without anything.
Oh, my dog is.
Yeah, like.
Oh, here we go. I got him here now. So let's see. So we got the Boston Fleet.
I like that because that makes sense. Which Boston never misses on anything, to be fair, which kind of like annoys me because I'm just like, can you just miss on something? But it's like every time they have something, it's like, we're good. And I'm like, goddamn right you are.
So that's pretty cool. It's and even the logo, like the font and stuff they use, pretty cool for that. Then it is the Minnesota Frost, which
that's fine.
Right, that's fine. Montreal Victory is what it is.
It's Montreal. I'm not going to say anything. They want to be French as they can be. So
yes,
sure.
Sir. And then what's this one?
Have a little French flair in there.
So it's New York Sirens, which kind of feels like a cheerleading team, to be honest. I'm not going to lie.
When I looked at that, I thought it was like when I looked at their logo, I thought it was like the women's basketball or something. And I was just like, I'm confused.
That's
but I'm just like, I'm a Canadian. I'm a Canadian.
Too,
I'm allowed to be confused.
I get there's a lot of sirens in New York, but come on.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Yeah. It was like the logo is even kind of looks like basketball. That's actually now that you say that, that's what it is. Then you get the Ottawa Charge.
Oh, that looks so stupid. And I've got friends in Ottawa, and people. I was like, man, it looks like Calgary Flames, but without they're just like, yeah, this is like Timu's or Calgary Flames logo. I'm like, that's what it looks like.
Charge. I don't like that one though.
Yeah, and then thing popped up, of course. Then we got Toronto Spectres.
Yeah, there you go.
Or no, what is it? No, that's not even right. Man. It's Skepter. What the hell? SCEPTRES.
Welcome.
Skepters? Yeah, cool. That name. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought it was a bit weird. The names are kind of weird to a certain degree. But...
Like, I feel like Toronto would embody anything to do with Maple Leafs, right? Like, at one point down here, we had like the St. John's Maple Leafs. Like, they got Toronto Marlies. Their ECHL team now is like Carolina's one. I'm sure they'll like rebrand that some way, but it's just like for the girls wouldn't. Now I could be wrong on this one. Maybe it was something that they didn't like, but I was like, why wouldn't you just call them like the Toronto Ladybugs or something like that is, synonymous with Maple Leafs or something? Because I mean, they're all pretty close knit. Yeah. But I would have thought something with like a leaf or something like something else that we don't know about Toronto. Maybe that they could have had like the Toronto. I don't know, looking like CN Tower. They could have been like the Toronto Towers or something like that. But
that's a better name there.
Like, let's go with something that people are going to be just as confused with. I'm just like, thanks, Toronto.
Well, sounds about right.
Yeah, but
we had down here, which we had like, what was it? The biggest like down here for hockey, we had Maple Leafs, which made sense. We had By the Puffin. And they changed to the Growlers, but
ice
to
caps.
the dog. But
ice caps.
But like no matter what, we still kept the Puffin. And I know there's people in Newfoundland right now, and listen, I'll go out on a whim. I don't care. You want to cancel me, you can cancel me. But it's just like, I get the Puffin, okay? I get it's a Puffin for Newfoundland, but I'm just like, you changed it to a Growler. Shouldn't it have been a dog? And if it's like an ice cap, I don't know I feel like that's fine. Keep By the Puffin, but I'm just like, I'm surprised nobody at like Tim Hortons was like, all right, let's get on this. Let's make a giant ice cap as our mascot. I'd be like, sounds like it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a different name, hey, too. Because then they had the Signal Hill, the Cabot Towers. I don't even remember.
Towers.
Yeah, so
their jerseys were nice. Like I really like the ice, or I think it was like the St. John's ice cap ones that I like. Is like I like the Signal Hill one. And they have another one that was like for the regiment. And that one's really, really nice.
Yeah, I forgot about that jersey. That actually is a really nice jersey.
The Ice Caps jersey is one that I missed out on. I wish I could have had one. Yeah. Because I did like the blue colors and stuff like that. Blue. Yeah. It was the Winnipeg Jets kind of colors or whatever they had.
That was almost like a death blow for us. Where it's just like, we're Toronto's farm team, Montreal's farm team. Now we're Winnipeg's, and like, Montreal's just kill us.
Yeah.
Like,
just write us
just kill us. Yeah, like Winnipeg's like, it's nice. Don't get us wrong. Like I'm sure we see. I was like, Dad said it was like Connor Hellebuck and a few were down here, and I was like, really? Like that's interesting. But it's just like there got to be players when they got called up to Winnipeg. They're like, can we just stay here? Like the travel between Newfoundland and Winnipeg, like just either we get cold climate and we stay here, or we go back to Newfoundland but we feel isolated. I'm just like, it's a lose-lose, baby.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. That's the hardest part about professional sports teams in Newfoundland. It's so far away, for travel and stuff like that. Logistically, it just doesn't make sense for a lot of business.
Oh, for sure. And the way that they make the fucking flights and everything, man, like they don't, like there's nothing sensible about any of it. I mean, we're here in Alberta. I mean, I do come home. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's not like I don't want to come home, man. Like, fucking make it at least sensible. Like, it's nuts. And it's like, well, you can only fly in, man, at 6:30 in the morning or at 2:30 in the morning. And you're like, fuck. Right? So you fly overnight, you fly all day, pick one.
I looked at one because I have a buddy that's getting married in Ottawa in October, and I was looking at flights the other day, and I'm just like, just going through it, and then I was just like, okay, so if I leave here at 7 a.m, I'm like, justifiably, maybe like one or two you'll line in Ottawa, and they're like 7 at night. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing all that time? Am I in the air? Are we having a party? Like, what's time to go? And they're like, no, you'll be like laid over in like Halifax for 10 hours. I'm like, I didn't suggest that. I'm like, who the fuck in their right mind would do that? It's like some psychopath that's like, I love airports. I'm just like, I don't. I can stay here for an hour and I'm good. But I don't know. Like, I guess if you don't have any other options, but I'm just like, man, you become like labeled as like, that guy over there? Yeah, he's airport guy. What does that mean? He's like, he intentionally stays here for like 10 hours. I'm just like, okay, stay clear of him. Like, not for me.
But he got a house in the corner there. But he got a house built in the corner.
But he's just like, I call the construction. They'll be here in a couple hours. I'll have my house built. And like, I'm just like, buddy, I'm leaving in like 20 minutes. He'd be like, oh, well, next time you're here, stop by. Like, at the airport? Yeah. And he'd be like, drop in Christmas time. I'll have something on for you. I'm just like, no, buddy, if I seize your house, I'm leaving.
Yeah. Like, the guy who brings a sleeping bag everywhere. And sets up a sleeping bag everywhere he goes. Yes, sir.
Some of them I will give them credit that they're smart. Like there once was a time when I was traveling from Newfoundland to Ottawa to go to university, and it was one of these the worst one that you could have. It was like right after Christmas, and I had never had like a bad flight, and then it just wouldn't leave. Like it just had to keep on circling and circling. So there's a baby on board bawling his eyes out, and I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Like, is it worth it to go back to university for all this? And then when we finally got there, I was like, okay, it wasn't a horrible experience, but I'm just like, never again. Because I used to like having maybe an hour in the airport, just like stretch your legs, get out, walk.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like I like it when it's saying you're staying on the same flight. So from Halifax to Ottawa, like from St. John's to Halifax, whatever, it's the same flight. But I just wish. And this is like, I was going to mention this to you to start off as a fun fact, but it's like to see what you guys say. But it's like a pet peeve. Like, buddy, I just want to get off the plane. Like, that I'm coming back on and I don't got anything with me. I'll leave my goddamn bags. Like, I'll leave everything here. But like, just let me go off the plane and let me go into like the tarmac or like the little place everyone else is waiting for like 10 minutes. I'll come back on. Like, God, I got to go somewhere.
I spent good money,
like,
man.
No, don't you dare. Don't you dare leave this plane. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, there's not enough room for me to stretch. Here, I'll leave everything here so that, like, I'm not, going out there to make a bomb. And then, like, I'll come back in.
Don't say that word.
But, like, that's what it's like. They're just like, they treat you like,
oh, man, the airport's nuts.
We got to keep your eyes on you. And I'm just like, okay, like I'll just sit over here in the corner. Don't sit too much. I'm just like, okay, I'll get up and stretch. And they're like, now you're stretching. And I'm just like, oh, what do you want me to do?
Jeez, yes, I'm gonna go take a crap. Don't be crapping too long now.
No, well,
don't do that.
We landed in Halifax. They told us one time you can't get off, and I don't know. Maybe it was I did it to myself. Now when I go on planes, I basically wear just like a shirt, shorts, like, so I'm not overly warm, but I must have been like wearing a winter coat or whatever, and I was like really cooked. And I told the girl once we landed, I was like, can I just get some water? Can I get something? And then she was like, no, we're not serving water right now. It's like, what the fuck do you mean you're not serving water? I'm just
Got
still
no
like,
water on this plane.
Yeah, I'm just like, as soon as we go back up in the air and you start serving water, I swear to God, if you say you got water, I'm gonna be mad, because I'm just still like, you're telling me right now I can't have water while we're landed.
Doing
like,
nothing.
Yeah.
The most basic convenience you could ever be given. Yeah.
Beyond the shelter above your head.
Yeah, it's not like we're like getting ready for like, you know, when they're doing like, what does you call it? Like the plane's going down, they tell you like we're landing in water. It's not like I'm like, I know the plane's going down and we're going to go in water, but like, do you have a glass of water right now as we're sinking? It's like, no, I'm asking it as we're safe. There's nobody here. It's like 20 of us just sitting here. I'm just like, I don't think 20 other people are going to be like, hey, you gave him water, you got to give me water. It's like, no, he's actually sick. That's why we're giving him water, so he doesn't throw up and ruin your whole flight. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah, but what we're going to do is we're not going to give him water, and he's going to get sick. So I think you should give him water. It's like, yeah, same here. I think I should have water.
Can I get a beer while you're at it?
Yeah. Well, that would be like the next thing that they'd start. Well, if you gave him water, you got to give me a beer. It's like, actually, water doesn't affect his brain at all, and we've already gave you 5 beer. And sir, that's not even. You're not even sitting down. You
sir,
are like right on the.
We haven't left the
lap.
tarmac yet, sir.
Yeah, why are you sitting up there with the pilot on his lap? Oh, I thought this was my seat. And it's like, you had too many.
You're cut off.
Sir, you can't sit here.
You are cut off, sir. You can't sit here.
Yeah. Oh, they told me I could sit first class. It's like, this is beyond first class, sir.
Yeah. Now you're the co-pilot.
This is personal space.
That's what the door's for, you asshole. Get out.
That's one thing. I've never been in the cockpit of an airplane before.
I've been in such a small plane that I'm sitting in the cockpit while I'm riding in it.
Oh, Jesus.
I've been in that type of plane. I've never sat in cockpit necessarily, but I felt like it.
Oh.
I could definitely see what he was doing. He could hear me breathing probably.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah,
no way.
Yeah, when I flew up here the first time, actually, it was from, what was it from? Calgary to Red Deer. And it was like this, I don't know planes at all, but it was like a Dash 8-ish looking thing or whatever. And literally, you were flying the plane and I was right here.
Oh, cow.
And there was like 2 other people in the plane and our bags just got tossed inside. There was no like put her in the back.
Holy shit.
It was wicked. Yeah, that was sketchy. Middle of winter. Yeah, it was awesome. It was funny though.
Not a great flyer.
No?
Nah.
Let's go sleep. Fuck that.
I've never been able to sleep on a plane before either.
It's the only place I can sleep. I don't sleep in cars, but on plane I will.
See, I used to put on like, I think it was like Air Canada had it, is they'd give you like headphones, but they were actually useful headphones, or you could just bring your own and put them in. But it was like, I would watch, say like Big Bang or How I Met Your Mother, or I'd have my own one that I just watch, like Boy Meets World or Family Matters or whatever. Like I think the easiest flight that I could have, and I say this, and there's a lot of people that's just like, you fly there? Like, you could drive. I'm just like, yeah, but a drive is harder for me. But like Toronto to Ottawa, it's about, I'd say, if not, maybe, this is how I map it out. Like, people just say like 40 minutes, whatever. I'm just like, it's about 2 episodes of Big Bang, maybe 3. You know, you sit there, watch Big Bang Theory. It's like, I don't know, like, these things, like when people are like, oh, look how long did I just go by like what I was able to watch. Like, if someone's just like, how long is it from like, you know, your house to your cabin? I'm just like, it's like 10 episodes, maybe 10 episodes of, you know, this. And they're like, can you give us that in the time? I'm like, just 10 episodes, man. Just sit down and just watch 10 episodes.
And then you'll be there.
Watch half a season of The Office, like, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Show to me is like half hour, right? Say show half hour. That's how it's more or less what I equate to.
It's like if someone's just like, I can't remember how long it is from like, say, Ottawa to Belleville, but it's just like, I feel like saying to somebody like, just go watch like Raw and SmackDown for the week, and then you'll be good.
Hey,
like, you know?
There you go.
Hey, play the SmackDown.
And then they're like, I don't like wrestling. I'm just like, well, you're gonna have a tough time then.
So where are you located right now? Where in Newfoundland?
I'm in Gould's, so it's like basically St. John's. Like there's St. John's, we go under St. John's, but it's like if you go Gould's, it goes then Bay Bulls, then Witless Bay, then the next one then it's Mobile. But
Mobile, yeah.
I think most times when people like, when I went to school in Ottawa, I told people like, yeah, I was from St. John's, and then they kind of left me alone. They're just like, oh, you're a Newfoundlander from St. John's, okay. But if I was like, I'm from the Gould's, it's like, where is your hick ass from?
What'd you say? What'd you just say?
Where the fuck are you from,
buddy?
Well, that is like the toughest adjustment. I don't know, like I guess out west, because I'd say a lot more Newfoundlanders are out west than anywhere else. There's probably more Newfoundlanders out west than there are in Newfoundland.
Pretty much.
But it's like I felt like for the first whole year in Ottawa, I would go to class, I would ask somebody, and like you're just 20 odd, so you don't really think about it. I was like, "What are you?" And they were just like, "What? What did you just say to me?" I'm just like, "It means what's up." And they're like, "Why didn't you just say that?" I'm just like, "Because I'm from Newfoundland." They're like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then like next class, "What are you at?" "I told you." And I'm just like, "And I told you, this isn't coming out of me. Like, I'm not changing."
Not changing it.
And then it would come to the point. You come to the point where you just be like, if you met another Newfoundlander and then you just had a conversation like, "You at? This is it." And they're just like, "Boys, I don't understand what you just said." And I'm just like, "And let's keep it that way."
Yeah. That's exactly what I meant.
Exactly.
Yeah, I found that because I moved to Halifax first to go to school, and that's the first. And I mean, it's a little bit East Coast still to a certain degree, but it's not. It's not. Nobody says what you at or yes by or or very few anyway. Like Cape Bretoners try hard, but they're not great. But yeah, I found the same thing. Even like holding the door open for someone was kind of like they're like fucking. What are you trying to do? Like, it's like, man, I'm not trying to do anything. I mean, it happens up here all the time. I just still hold doors for people. I'm not an asshole. But I do get some funny looks, man. People look at you like you're going to steal their shit. Like one lady wouldn't go through the door. She mowed it off to me. And I was like, I'm just trying to be nice, man. Like, I didn't want the door to smash in the face on the way through. Like, chill out. Like, holy Christ. I wasn't trying to steal your purse.
Your example of that is, like, spot on because, like, I would see people run from the bus to get into the building, and then I would hold the door open, and then they just kind of slowly start, like they're jogging, like they're trucking it, and then they just kind of stop, and then it feels awkward because then they pick up their pace again, and I'm just like, motherfuck, like now I made you run more, and then when they get to the door, you feel like you got to apologize, and you're like, sorry, I didn't know you were going to take your own fucking goddamn time. Like, I remember there was one class that this guy, like, we had conflicting schedules for one of our because when it comes to like the end of the year around December, like you got projects and assignments to do. So you're kind of beat out. You probably don't go to all your classes. And both of us had this paper due. And I was like, okay, well, I got a break in between classes, Jay. Like, I'm going to go pass this in. Do you want me to pass yours in? And then he kind of like took it out of his book bag and held it in front of me, like as if it was like some kind of ransom note. And I was just all like, Jay, like I can hand it in. He's like, but why do you want to hand mine? And I'm like, motherfucker, like I just told you, like we're not going to make it on time. Like you clearly have class, I don't. And then I had to take mine out to show him that mine was done. And he still didn't like trust me enough. I'm like, okay, fuck it, fine. He's like, I'm just going to email the prof. I'm like, all right, like I didn't, because if you start getting more offended, there's like, you don't trust me. You don't like after like 30 to fucking 40 days of knowing me. And it's just, they're like, no, I'll email the prof, like, hey, fuck it, do what you got to do. And I'm just like, I'm just going to go pass it in. And it's like almost like he's going to call your bluff.
Yeah.
And then he like started watching me walk away. And then he's like, so are you going to pass mine in? And I'm just like, I just told you I couldn't. He's like, now I'm going to email the prof. I'm just like, I'm not playing this game. I'm like, okay, see you, Jay.
See you, man.
I'm just going to pass mine in. But it's just like, why would you then second guess it where if someone shows you their project is done and they're just trying to be helpful? But I feel like poor Ontario, man, like they just probably don't get help. You know?
No, man, that's the worst spot because I was working there off and on for a bit and stuff. And yeah, that was the weirdest place for that stuff because it's like nobody's paying attention to anybody. Nobody, I mean, everybody just, well, now it's head down. At the time, it was kind of straightforward, but yeah, it was weird, man, that way. Like, nobody's looking out for anybody. Like, there's none of that.
I've spent, like,
nobody.
It's so funny because, like, I would love to just travel around, like, certain parts of Canada. Like, I think, like, what's his name? Johnny Harris does it for, like, certain things for his show. But it's just, like, he just goes to, like, the little small communities. But I'm just, like, I find going from Newfoundland to Ottawa was adjustment. But nothing compared to like going to Ottawa to Toronto because I'm like, okay, I've spent so many years in Ottawa. I've kind of contained like this Ottawa or mainland like do's and don'ts. Like you have your own list of like, do be friendly, don't be Newfoundland friendly. It's just like, okay. So then I go to Toronto and I'm lost and I asked someone, where's Global Toronto? And Buddy just went like, boom, and just pointed at me. And I was like, that didn't help me at all. But I guess in his mind, he's like, he probably went home with his wife. He's like, I did something very helpful today. I pointed the guy in the direction where he was to. And she was like, don't you ever do that again. He's like, okay, I got you. But I'm just like, it wasn't very helpful at all.
No.
It's too big, man. There's too many people in one spot there. That's out of control, man.
Yeah, it doesn't have that sense of community like,
No.
small town Newfoundland.
No.
Oh, God, no.
Well, the small town Newfoundland, I find it can be very cliquish, like to the point where it's just like, you can go to a store or, you want us to sign up for a certain sport to like be a coach or whatever. And it's just like, who do I contact? And it's like, they'll give you the person's last name. And it's just like, buddy, there's like 50 of those here. And it's just like, they're all probably related. Or worse, it's just like, yeah, you don't want to talk to his brother and him don't get along. I'm just like, okay. But I'm just like, so who do I contact? It's like, contact him first. And if you don't respond, contact his brother. I'm like, I feel like I'm getting inside a family like warfare, man.
I'm in the middle of this argument suddenly.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It's just like, did you talk to Stan? It's like, I did. It's like, I told you not to talk to Stan. That's my brother and I hate him. I'm just like, buddy, all I want us to do is just figure out what I need to do to move further in this program. That's it. And neither one of you responded, so both of you are probably stupid. Like, you're about like Oasis here.
I feel like small town can also be like, even say some, like with your podcast, people are like, oh, what's he going doing that for? Like, what's he doing that
everybody
for?
thinks you're silly for doing anything that's modern, as people would say, right? Like, it's right silly.
So how was that for you when you've been doing this for a while now with your podcast and stuff like that? Like, when did it start, and like how was the reception around like your group and your town and stuff?
Oh, they told me they basically wanted to like get me out with pitchforks. they're like expel them. I've done this now, I'd say since 2019 or 20. It's definitely 20. It's like 2017 maybe, around those dates.
Yeah.
I know that's like the backstory of it was at Carleton. I wanted to get involved in the radio program, but like it was volunteer and they wouldn't give you really a time slot. And then I seen kids that were in journalism and they were getting like, free range. And I was like, okay. I was like, I guess I just got to work my way up. Like my brother was pretty grounded in terms of like, cause I lived with my brother and he would tell you like, Bryan, like you're not getting the Tonight Show as a 20-year-old, like just calm the goddamn down. And I was just like, okay. So I felt like, okay, I got to work my way up. And then I went to, where did I go from there? Oh, Loyalist to do sports journalism. Cause I wasn't involved in like, news stuff. There was no really like music program for journalism. So when I did sports journalism, I kind of got my feet wet. Like I got to interview some of the Belleville Bulls. So I got Jordan Subban. And I think the big time interview for that one, besides Jordan Subban, was like a few of the girls got to interview, I think Christine St. Clair in our program. So I thought like, okay, like I'm starting to get interviews. I'm starting to get into sports. And then when we did our internship, I think it was like Terry at like CTV Olive was like, yeah, sports is good, but you want to be well grounded on other things. I'm like, okay. I was like, this is what Dad told me too. And I was like, where do I go for this one? And he's like, Algonquin, do radio. So I did a radio program. And then in the second year, they wanted you to do an internship. So I had already done my first internship with CBC, and a few of the students were like pissed off because you weren't supposed to do an internship till second year. But I was like, F you, like I'm just trying to get ahead. And like I know like if I just played by the book, like you could go off and do CTV Barrie and then you'd be telling me to F off because I was jealous of you. So I ended up doing it at Global, and then Global Toronto, like they made promises that were kind of like, we'll let you do interviews with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner. This was like their first year in the NHL. And I was like, that's cool. Like I'm going to learn, they're going to learn on the fly. Toronto already had Mark Masters at this point. So I was like, no, I'm not going to go to TSN because I didn't think there was anything valuable for me. I was like trying to plan ahead. I'm like, if I did this here, then I can go to TSN and say, listen, I've already done interviews. I'm not trying to take Mark Masters' job, but at least you can trust me. If he's not here one day, you can put me in there. Like that's where my mindset went.
Yeah.
And then I think I lasted like a week at Global because I didn't know Toronto. I just wasn't like the people in Global Toronto were kind of like, they'd say something to you. And then if you carried on with them, you were the asshole, but they were allowed to say things to you that was like very uncomfortable. And I was just like, okay. So I ended up coming back to Algonquin, and they're like, dude, we can't give you like your diploma unless you do something. And they're like, we can keep giving you like radio shifts. I'm like, no, because I haven't progressed. Like, it's just basically like what year ones were doing. So I remember going into my teacher and saying, I came up with a few ideas. Like I want to do a sports podcast where you just kind of give you Ottawa highlights, but they'd probably be like 2 or 3 days old. And like, again, you're young, so you're just trying to think it through. And he instantly went like, no. And I was like, okay. So I came back with another one where I was like, what about if I did like a radio show here, but like I talked to local celebrities? And he's like, no. And then I got so frustrated, and I don't know what came out of me, because it's like, it's still a teacher, and it's like a university or a college teacher. And then I just looked at him. I was just like, well, what the hell do you want me to do? I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to come up with a podcast, and you know what? I'm going to interview celebrities. I don't care what you think. And then I gave him a few names that I wanted to interview. And then he said to me, which is like the same thing as when you tell a girl when she's having cramps and whatever, like, get over it. He went and said to me, like, good luck with it. And I wasn't like, good luck, Brian. Like, you know, I hope you succeed. It was almost like, good luck. Like, fuck, that's not going to happen for you. And like, I don't know. I just left that office and I was like, you just pissed me off so bad that it's like, now that even if I don't want to do it, I'm just going to do it just because you like, just to kind of rub it in your face. I'm like, you know, you could be like the miserable, most unhappy person about doing it, but you're like, I have to at least have 5 episodes just to rub it in his face. And I have to have at least this guy on just so I can say, fuck you.
Told you so.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So then it happened that like, Junos were in Ottawa. So then I was like, perfect. So then I reached out to Jimmy and Heather Rankin. I reached out to the Arkells, and I didn't expect much response. I think Jimmy's wife is his PR, and she came back and she's like, how many episodes you get done? I'm like, oh, here we go. Here's the killer. They're going to like, I'm not going to get anything done because they're going to look for like, you know, material.
Yeah.
And then I said, no, he would be the first one, blah, blah, blah. And then she came back and was like, he'd love to do it. And then when I had him for the first time, I was late to my own goddamn first interview. It was like 3:30 and I showed up at like 3:45 and I was like, all right, I'm already done. I'm already cooked. And then he was still on the line. I was like, oh, hey, Jimmy. And he was just like, hey, man. And he's like, I was just getting in. And I'm like, so wait, you were 15 minutes fucking late to my interview? And I was just like, but
Wicked.
Yeah, like it's gone well over time, but there are definitely points and times, like, I mean, you probably feel this at times too, is like, you think you're on a road, you start to get a high point. Like I think we had like Bob Saget on, John Stamos, and I was like, okay, good. Now we've got some names. Now I can use those names to get more acts on. And then sometimes you just reach out to people like, I have no idea who that is. I'm just like, I don't know if I'm more insulted by that or more insulted that you don't know who this person is. And then it's just like, it feels like ground zero again. Like you got to go start all the way up. And that's how I feel now. Like when I reach out to certain ones, I'm just like, buddy, like I've had this person on. And it's not to like be egotistical. It's just kind of giving them an example of like, hey, if you're turning me down, but these guys didn't, like, what does that say about you or your act?
Yeah.
And they'll just come back and be like, don't care. And I'm just like, all right, like I can't like force you, but there is just a side of me like, really? Like I'm not even aiming that high, or the celebrities that you have on, you're just kind of like, you know, like, okay, these are bigger names than you, but you're turning me down. I'm just like, okay. But I haven't had much feedback in terms of like people being negative in terms of like my own kind of community. Like we've had it on down here on Rogers TV for the last 2 years. And I think this time I don't have it on for summer or for fall because I'm starting to work on episodes. And I didn't want to feel like I'm pressured to like come out with episodes to have them ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's slow growth. And I think that's a lot of times that like younger people, when they start podcasts, like unless you get known for like 2 words, Haktua or whatever, and then you become world famous. It's like a lot of people just like look at that stuff and they're like, man, I'm going to have a podcast. It's going to be successful overnight. I'm just like, dude, I've been doing this for like 6 or 7 years. And sometimes it feels like you've hit your stride. Sometimes you feel like, all right, I'm done. Like I give up. And then there's other times that you're just like, no, I'm going to keep doing it because I want to do it. Like I could care less if like 20 people watch or 500 people watch or whatever. It's like, I just like doing it because like, you know, at the end of my lifetime, I'll look back and be like, look at like the 200 people that we've talked to.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about it. It's like the potential future me saying, shit, we did that, right? Like we went out of our way, we fucking did that we reached out, we got, we're doing it all ourselves as Wicked. Like it's something, you know what I mean? It feels good, even if it's not listened to by thousands or millions of people or whatever whatever you're looking for, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just fun. But I think a lot of it is the consistency, and that you just have to keep going, right? Like you have to have something every week or whatever your deal is that you committed to, and just keep doing it. And it's hard sometimes, but that's it, right?
It's funny you said with consistency, because like I took the summer off this year to just kind of like, and people would say it to you, and I'm just like, that's a crock of shit, because you're already fucking world famous. So yeah, you can take like a couple months off. Like it's like Ed Sheeran, when Ed Sheeran drops an album, and I love Ed Sheeran, but I remember in university he would drop an album, and he's like, now I'm going on a break, and I'm like, you know what? That's fine, Ed. Like you deserve that break. And then it became a trend where he'd drop an album, and then he'd go on a break. I'm like, Ed, how many breaks do you need? Like honestly. Like you're upsetting me. But then it's like when he comes back out, you're amped up again. Like you don't feel like he's like wore himself out, or you're like, fuck, Ed, like just shut up. Like you're like, no, I'm ready. So I decided like I'll take a little bit of a break. And at first I started seeing like my numbers decrease. And then I was like, that's fine. Like I expect that. But like I haven't put out an episode since like March. And then I look back at my like timeline, and it's just like it's gone up. I'm like, so do people like not like that I'm back? Is that what I was basically like? No, we're glad he's not here. We'll go back, and like maybe some people think you're dead, and they're like, we should listen to him because he's no longer with us, and we should see what he's about.
We should watch the back catalog.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. And then sometimes it might just be like a guest that they like, and that's fine. But I think it's interesting because I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan. Like there's certain songs I like from Taylor, but every now and again I'll look at a post and it shows Taylor's like first ever, I guess, concert, and it's literally her on a shitty old stage with a goddamn homemade banner and maybe 5 people watching. I'm just like, of course, no one knows who you are. They're not going to support you because they don't know what you're doing. They never heard of you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like now when she started coming out with her first album, and then like I don't know what album she's on now, but it's just like now she's world famous, selling out stuff, and like that's good for her now. But I'm like, even in 2012. She could have retired in 2012 or just said, I'm going to take a few months break. And it's like, you're okay. Like people know you. If you decide more that you were doing something different, you have your fan base. So I feel like from ground zero or starting from scratch, like no one knows. And that's fair. There could be like a kid out here now in Newfoundland or Alberta or whatever that's maybe got 5 people watching his podcast now, and like in 20 years' time, we could both be fucking trying to fight for him to be on our show. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's just they're like, and then you're just like, man, like he started back in 20 years. I remember, okay, I was on this podcast when he was first starting, and now he's doing better than me. Fuck him. But
Did you ever end up getting when you gave that teacher your list of names? Did you end up getting any of those people on?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like, cause it wasn't like I wasn't shooting for
Taylor Swift.
Like there's still people that like I've known a girl from Carleton that I told her if I ever get Conan O'Brien on, I'm going to quit my show. And like at first I was kind of making it as a joke because Conan is my guy. I love Conan, but it's almost like, and now this could be like kind of false hope for me, but I feel like I'm close to having Conan on to the point where I'm just like, oh fuck, I really wish I shouldn't have said that because I don't want to stop my show. But I told her, it's like, if I ever get Conan on, you will be the first person I contact. And I'm still kind of friendly with her, but like, over time you just don't chat with people. So every now and again, I'll just check in on her just to make sure like, hey, like, I don't want it to come across as like one day randomly, like I got Conan on. She's like, who the fuck are you? So it's just for like, but I feel like, yeah, like I feel like you gotta have that optimism. But yeah, I think on the list when I told the teacher who I wanted on, I did want the Arkells because, and I didn't know like the Junos were in Ottawa. Like this is how clueless I was. But I wanted the Arkells because I was after getting into the Arkells the last couple of years, and they recently had like, I can't remember the song it was, but I was like really into it, and I was like, they were hot, like really hot at that time. So it's just like, man, if I get them on, I think I'm doing okay. Yeah. And then I wanted Colin Mockery on from Whose Line because I loved Whose Line as it anyway.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other big names I wanted, which I still haven't gotten, but I think it was like Shania. And we reached out to Shania like every now and again, and we're just told like no. And I'm like, oh, okay, like it does get after a while, like back and forth where I'm just like, what are you talking about? Last time you were like, next time she was in Newfoundland. I'm like, she was literally here, and you're telling me no.
Just
and it's
seen her.
just like, yeah, and it's like, she's doing well. I'm like, no, well, no, fuck, she's doing well. Like, yeah, I know she's doing well. That's why I want her on. But it's like, no, by the time we get Shania Twain on, and it's like, no offense to Shania if she's out listening to this, but it's just like,
probably not.
she's gonna be like 80. She'll be like 80, right? And then she'll come to Newfoundland for a retirement tour, and it's like, are you interested in her now? I'm just like, oh, I'm still interested, but I'm just like, 20 odd years ago, I was also younger, and I was probably more lively,
Yes.
Now I'd be like 50 odd, and I'd be like, Shania, I loved you when I was 10, and then people are watching a 50-year-old go, be like, when you were 10, like compared to if I'm a 30-year-old and I'm like, I loved you when you were 10, people are like, that's not that long ago, Brian.
Yeah, that's more a reasonable time frame.
yeah, exactly.
It's
interesting because like you even look at like people doing interviews now, like I'm sure I've seen Conan do his own interviews, or like if you look on CNN and people like, they're older obviously, but they'll sit down with someone that they grew up and idolized, and I'm just like, oh, two old fucks talking. And then, but I'm just like, but at one point they were 20.
Yeah.
And they probably wanted to have that person talking to them when they were like, 30 even. So now they get to interview them at like 80, and they're thinking like this is the highlight of their life. Like, I'm sure there's people out there now that probably like idolized Bobby Orr, and if they had a chance to sit down with them, they're probably like 60 or something odd too. And then you're sitting there like, fucking two old fucks. But then it's like in your mind, it's like I could sit down with like Connor McDavid, I don't know, 30 or 40 years from now, and my nephew could be watching TV and he'd be like, yeah, there's my uncle, an old fuck, talking to someone else.
Fucks talking about old-time hockey.
Old-time hockey.
Yeah, and I'd be like, you should be happy. I'm your uncle. And he'd be like, you're still old as fuck.
I
guess, but then you would have more experience and more to talk about then, I guess, right?
It'd be a different conversation, that's for sure.
Yeah, like maybe I look at hours like people like I guess it's more for like the West Coast to give them something to stay tuned to after a Vancouver game or whatever. But it's like I'll stay up sometimes for after hours, and I'm just like, man, Scott Oak is like a legend. But at some point, I'm just like, I'm sure over the years Scott Oak has, crafted or gotten better with these interviews, but I wonder if there's a point in time where Scott Oak sits down with like, an older hockey player, and he's probably more relaxed because he probably grew up watching them, where, be sitting next to like Jack Hughes or Luke Hughes or Quinn. He's probably more professional, but he's probably like, I like, I watch, but if I was sitting here with so-and-so, like, I don't know, like, say if Johnny Bauer was still around and he sat down with Johnny Bauer, I'd say he'd have a little bit more of a conversation. Like, you'd see it more. Like, you'd see his interactions more, right? Which, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, like, if you grew up watching someone and you got a chance to interview him, you'd probably be more interested. Like, I'd probably go, much as they try to train you, like, be professional when you're interviewing someone. I'm like, as soon as Conan came out of podcast, I'd be like, oh my God, Conan, I love you. And he'd be like, thanks. And I'd be like, I know I'm supposed to be more professional, but I got to tell you right now. Yeah. But then if I had like Jimmy Fallon on, like, I like Fallon, but I'd probably be a little bit more relaxed. I'd probably be like, listen, Fallon, appreciate your SNL, appreciate like late night and all this, but there'll still be a little bit of me that's like, why did you take the Tonight Show? Like, why did you take that away from Conan? Like,
Yeah. That was a huge controversy, when that
kind of
flip-flop.
I was really into like the late night shows at that point too, because
Jay Leno comes back.
There was a lot of good ones at that point too, like right at the cusp of like that transition. Like Leno was going out or what, transition to his next thing or whatever. But like Craig Kilborn had a really good show, and there was a couple like really good shows. Like even what's his name from out of Toronto there, he was really good. That used to be on ITV.
Not Mike Bullard.
Mike Bullard, yeah, like that was pretty good for Canadian television kind of thing. That was pretty cool.
Like, here's my philosophy, and I could be wrong on this, but I've mentioned this to a few friends at that time frame. Now, again, it might be a little bit mixed up, but I'm just like, when someone says if you go back in time and you change one little small thing, how it can impact like the rest of your life. Like if you, like, I don't know, in movies it's like, oh, I didn't pick up a quarter, and it's like somehow, a piano falls on someone because you didn't pick up a quarter. I'm like, how did that affect that? It's like, well, no, if you picked up the quarter, they looked at you and then they seen, I'm like, okay. But it's just, Jon Stewart leaves The Daily Show, and then it's almost like they have that hole. So then it goes to Trevor Noah because I think Colbert had already signed on to be like the Late Show host, or like, no, sorry, the Late Show host. But I'm like, dude, if you had all this in writing, I would have had Jon Stewart move, whatever he wants to do, but Colbert take that slot, Oliver take Colbert Report. He could have still called it like whatever he does now, like for HBO. Conan would still have the Tonight Show. Late night you could have still had with Jimmy Fallon, because that's still a relatively young lineup right there. CBS, I think when Letterman went, they should have gave it to Ferguson, but I guess Ferguson was like, I guess the same way that like about the Tonight Show, it's like I'm comfortable with my later audience. Yeah. And Ferguson was probably like, no, I don't want that. But I'm just like, dude, you would have a younger time slot move with you. So they could have gave Ferguson that. Then they could have brought in another, I don't know who else was on the block, but I would have had someone else for like the Late Show. But I'm like, that's a perfect combo. And the other side of it is like, I used to go watch the Tonight Show with Conan. And then depending on who Fallon had on, I'd either watch a bit of Fallon, but I just liked Ferguson's approach to his monologues. Like, you know,
I agree.
I read like the late, like I read like the Late Shift and then like the War for Late Night, like those two books. And it's like fascinating to see what Leno did to get the Tonight Show. Cause I think even Carson wanted Letterman, but it's just to see it like all play out and then what could have been. But I just found like watching Ferguson, like Conan gave you laughs, but it was more of self-humor. Like he would be in an interview, self-humor. His monologues were okay, but I found Ferguson wasn't a monologue guy. Like Ferguson was just like, I'm going to tell you how I feel about certain topics. And sometimes it's like, whether it was Britney Spears, whether it was like 9/11, whatever, he just kind of spoke from his own experience. But I found he just did not give a shit. Like he had like a gay robot as a sidekick.
Yeah.
He had like,
wicked. I love that
he
show.
would like, and then he, I think, implemented social media first, because then he would have people tweet at him. And I remember there was one night that like he fucked it up, but I didn't care that he fucked it up, because I was like, you know, people mispronounce Newfoundland, but I think he called it like Placentia, Newfoundland.
Oh, probably.
And then I was like, I don't care what you fucked up. I'm just like, just read it. Just read the tweet. And then someone was like, I'm a teacher from Placentia, Newfoundland. Like, my students don't listen to me. What should I do? And he just looked at the card and they flicked it. He's just like, tell him to F off. And then he just like continued on and just like, you really can't say that. But I'm like, he doesn't care, you know? So I just found Ferguson to be good in the terms of like, his interviews were pretty more relaxed, but he just kind of gave you that, like, I don't care. I'm not corporate. I'm here to have fun. This is fun. Conan, more or less, like, I'll play ball, but I'll make fun of myself. And I like those two aspects, because I think if you can implement that in like anything in life, like A, the ability to make fun of yourself, and B, to not really give too much of a shit, I think you'll be fine. Yeah. So those are like aspects I like to take from to podcasting. But those are like late night shows. I grew up on those late night shows. I think if I hadn't, I wouldn't be podcasting. And then, you know, then you had SNL. SNL would make sketches. Like they had, for years, SNL had like such a good cast. And then they lost a lot in one season, which is kind of like a crucial blow. But I just thought, like, you just take things from that too. But I used to watch Mad TV over SNL when I was smaller. So there's a lot of times if I'm like watching episodes of it, or if I'm doing interviews with people, I will throw out like a Miss Swan reference or a Stewart reference. And then I'm just like kind of, and like, it depends on who you talk to. Some of them get it. And some of them just think like you're just not there.
What you just like?
Yeah, like there's like episodes where it depends on like the age gap of the person you're interviewing. But I think there was one at Christmas, and like they're Newfoundlanders. If you have them on, like you should, because they're really interesting people. Like Quote the Raven. But I think I've mentioned to Jordan, I was just like, look what I can do, and instantly he knew what I was talking about. And then I was like, okay, he gets it. And then Kirsten, on the other hand, was kind of like, she doesn't watch TV or movies. And she was kind of like, what can you do? And I'm just like, Jordan, tell her. Like, clue her in on what the reference is. And he was just like, I'm sorry.
Pull up the video. Pull up the video.
Yeah, pull up the video. Show her. Just please show her.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? What's your favorite SNL cast then?
My favorite SNL cast member, so I used to collect the best of people on DVD.
Yeah, I have those.
now I have two older brothers, so obviously I have stuff from like the 90s when I was probably too young to watch it. So like I love Adam Sandler, I love Farley, but for me, my favorite one, just based on like, I guess range, is it's a tough one. Like I like Sudeikis and I like Bill Hader, right?
Hader's good.
Yeah.
And yeah, like because Hader can play Stefan, he can play somewhat serious roles. Sudeikis, I think, can play like serious stuff, but he'll give you a good sketch, but he doesn't laugh at it, right? Like I look back at Fallon stuff, and I'm just still like, I don't find it that funny. And then Fallon's like cracking up, and I'm just like, you find it funny? Like who wrote this? Like there's one that I think they had the other. Yeah, exactly. He wrote himself, and he's still laughing at it, right? It's just like I think there was a sketch the other day that someone had posted, and it was now with social media, people get a lot of things wrong. They're like, look at this Will Ferrell sketch. Will Ferrell's not even in the goddamn sketch. It's the other fella that's like Fallon's friend. I wish I could remember his name. He's like a bigger, chunkier fella. And
Horatio
he's going into this.
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be. But he's going into a store to buy like clothes, and then it's like Fallon and Adam Sandberg's character are supposed to be like kind of fashion designists.
Yeah.
And they're just like talking down to him the whole time, and like I guess the bigger guy makes a joke and it doesn't make any sense, but it's not supposed to. But then he starts chuckling, and then Fallon looks over and I'm like, what the hell? And it's like, no, that's right. That is the correct line. But then next minute Fallon just loses it. And it's like, oh my God, okay, Fallon. Like, how did you last this many seasons?
Yeah. Yeah, he was bad for that.
Yeah.
Really bad for
probably, that. Yeah, that's definitely my favorite. I like Sandler's probably my favorite. Farley, David Spade, that's Tim Robbins, that crew.
Yeah. And then like Eddie Murphy years kind of thing, because that's one thing like I found like in the early 90s, like you still see all that stuff, like it still came on as if it happened yesterday, right? Like it was happened 10 years ago or something, but like it seemed like it happened yesterday or whatever. But like I like those, and then I like that was the best. And then I found I did kind of fell off even like when Fallon and them like kind of took it over, like that was kind of my jump off point kind of thing. Because I was a bigger fan. Like I like Mad TV a lot more. I found like I don't know, and maybe it's because I don't watch either one of them now. But back in the day, Mad TV was the gear. I loved it.
I just think like for me, I had more access to Mad TV because it was like it would come on earlier and you'd see it more often. But it was just like you would turn in, you'd be like, okay, Stewart's a character, Miss Swan's a character. They had like one that I will still reference to this day, where they had like all the female characters doing. Milan, is it like Milan Rouge? Yeah, and then it's just like it's like I can't remember the girl's name, but all she basically does is like
oh yeah, she just laughs at everything or whatever.
If I swear to God, if I go down that road after this interview, where it's just like you go down YouTube and watch that for the next 3 days, I'll be out on the street walking a dog, and someone's just it'd be my neighbor, and it'd be like, "What are you at, Brian?" I'd be like, "Nothing." And they'd be like, "You okay?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, totally." But like, yeah, and then I thought that was like the funniest thing in the world. And then you turn on like SNL, if you're lucky to watch it like that late at night, and you're just like, you're not doing like music parodies until like Sandberg and them came along, and then they were doing like, my brother loves it to this day, which I think is funny because every now and again I'll play it for him. But it's just still like the Lonely Islands one where it's like Michael Bolton. It's like Michael Bolton's a cinephile. And he likes, and he's just like, this is the tale of the Captain Jack Sparrow. Yeah. And then you can hear like them in the background being like, no, like that's not what we signed John for. I'm like, I love it. I love that he's making fun of himself.
Yeah.
But I just thought at the time, it's like, yeah, Michael Bolton, he's a famous singer. But then my brother was like, do you realize like Michael Bolton was like really big to the point that like you should be shocked that he would do this. And I'm just like, why? He doesn't have a sense of humor. He's like, no, it was just like, he was that big. It's almost like if you had Michael Jackson making fun of himself on SNL, I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha. So more or less like, this is like once in a lifetime kind of rarity here. Okay, cool. But I always thought that SNL, for the most part, like it kind of felt like their own funny academy, where it's like once you graduated, someone in the wings would always take your spot. Yeah. And then they would like, like they lost, what was it, Tina Fey one year? And then they brought in like Kristen Wiig, and then Kristen Wiig becomes big. But I think it was just like over time, you'd only lose about like one or two per season, but the next person would be ready to step up. And then one year, I think the last couple of years, they've lost a lot.
Yeah.
And the cast weren't ready. It's like they lost Sudeikis, Hader, Sandberg, and it's like, okay, you're losing a lot of big names. And it's like, and here's the replacements. I'm like, okay, that's a lot. That's a lot on them.
Yeah.
Right. I think even like Seth at one point was more of a writer than he was a cast member. And to his credit, like a lot of those sketches he did well with, but when he was a cast member, he was kind of just like in the background. I'm like, okay, he knew his limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true enough.
That is true, because usually like every year, like you said, going back to the 70s, a new cast will come in and it's like, oh, well, it used to be way funnier before. And then they would actually step up and take over, and they would be the stars and do go off and do their own things, movies, whatever. They would.
But it's just like, you're just losing one or two, right? Like it's like a hockey team. I know, like, well, it's like we're Canadians, so we're going to bring back to hockey. But it's just like, it's like if you look at, say, Florida this year for winning the Cup, it's like if you only lost one member of that team, like, I don't know, just come up with one. Like, it doesn't have to be like, if you lost like Matthew Tkachuk or something, then yes, that's a big blow. But if you're just looking at like a lesser member of that team, but then the next person from your minor system steps up, it's like, okay, we're still pretty much the same team. But now imagine losing like 9 or 10 of those guys, and then you expect the next people to come up to like be that person. Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, we lost Sam Bennett. It's like, okay, Bill DeMont or whatever you want to call it. It's like, you now have to be Sam Bennett. And people are like, well, we expect him to be Sam Bennett, and he's not Sam Bennett, so that's horrible. It's like, no, let him be his own person over time. Like, the only thing I think I watch SNL for now as much is, and like, they kind of gave themselves their own credit, is Colin and Michael. And like, they have their own bit where it's like, they read each other's jokes, but like, that just say Colin's joke is supposed to be made as a white person saying it, but then Michael's reading it. Like, that's kind of stuff. And like, I'm surprised they get away with it in this kind of like society.
In the climate.
But you know what? It just makes it that much funnier, and then people tune in for it because of that. Like, I think there was one that they showed a clip of it the other day where it's like Colin Jost reads out Michael's joke about his wife, and he's like, Scarlett Johansson is coming out with a new movie. It's like, and I wouldn't go see that movie. It was the last goddamn thing or something on earth. And it's like, that's his wife. But he's like reading it because the other guy's like laughing his ass off. He's like, I know, like, people know that I wrote this for you, but it's just funny because he wouldn't actually say that, but it just makes it 10 times more funnier where it's just like, okay. And then he'll read something that's like about, and again, it's a joke, but something about like a black community or something. It's just as a black man reading it, it just works.
Yeah.
I just think it just works because the people know it's Colin that wrote it, but because Michael's saying it, they're just like, we should really have a problem with this, but they're just making fun of themselves, so that's okay.
Yeah, if you can make anything self-deprecating at least to a little bit anyway, you can get away with it. Like, that's a huge gateway to get past the controversial wall kind of thing. Is like, if you can make it a little bit self-deprecating in some way, everybody accepts that. It's like, you're throwing everybody under the bus kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think some people still, they'll just be offended for anything. I have Sturge Weber syndrome, so it's like I have like seizure, stroke all on my right side, and like it'll come and go. But like, I can make fun of that to myself, like, because I don't want people to feel awkward about it. Like, like if I got a birthmark on my face, like I'll make jokes, but like, there's always a person that's like, they'll send me the Family Guy, Peter in a boat, and he's having a stroke, and Peter's like, maybe he's not in the boat, the other guy's in a boat, and they're coming by and they're going, stroke, and they're like, how do you feel about that? And I'm just like, it's Family Guy. I'm like, nothing's untouched. I'm like, that's fine. They're not going, Bryan Tobin has a stroke. Yeah. So it's like, it's not like it's at me. So I'm like, they're gonna poke fun at everybody. But then they're like, so you're not offended? It doesn't hurt your feelings? I'm like, well, slightly, but now it hurts my feelings because you're bringing it up more.
Yeah,
like,
you're making me feel bad about not feeling bad.
Feel uncomfortable right now.
Like,
yeah.
I looked at the episode when I was younger and didn't give a shit. I'm just like, well, Peter does have a stroke in this episode. They're making fun of Peter, but it's just like, but you also have a stroke. How do you feel? I'm like, oh, now you're bringing it on me. Now it's on me. It's like, now I feel hurt, and they're just like, well, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but they did it first. I'm just like, yeah, but you brought it up.
Yeah. There are some things you just don't say.
Yeah, or bring it up in a humorous way.
Yeah, it's just like, well, it's funny because and we all do it, but it's just like, someone had posted, I think on like Facebook or Twitter. It's one of these pages that they'll post, images, but someone's like, why do you always feel the need when you see your buddy or something to be like, yeah, I saw your ex the other day. It's like, what do you want them to do? Jump and be like, does she miss me?
Yeah.
Does she want me back? How is she? It's like, they're just going to say, oh, okay, that's cool. Or, oh yeah, and what was she saying? And then if you say, oh, no, I just seen her, then they're like, well, what a pointless fucking story, Or they're not going to, like, even if they're hurting from it, they're not going to come out and be like, actually, that's really hurtful. I really wish you didn't say that. It's like, no, they're just going to tell you that's cool. Yeah. And then they might go home and be like, what a bastard that Ralph guy is telling me he saw my ex, like, who cares?
Yeah. What do you want me to say? Like,
yeah, exactly. What do you want me to do? Like, how is she? Does she talk about me? Does she miss me? Does she want me back? I still have her sweater. It's like, no. They're just going to move on.
I talked to her about work, and she said, yes, bye. And I said, right on, see you in a week.
That's it. Yeah, said hello, and that was it. Yeah. Brian, you got a good sense of humor. Have you ever thought about doing stand-up, or you know what I mean?
Oh, I've done one episode of stand-up in Ottawa, and, like, I have a friend, Mark Bennett, who's a Newfoundland comedian. But, like, I wish I talked to him more before I went to do it, because I thought, here's my expectation. You can kind of, like, again, you can tear me a new one if you're like, no, he's absolutely right. You're a piece of shit. You're stupid. I thought, like, oh, people go to Yuck Yucks or Good Comedy or a place like that to do stand-up. And I went into, I think, Yuck Yucks in Ottawa, but it was like, okay, we're booked up. And I was like, oh, man, that's a lot of pressure because, like, people now expect you to do well. So one of my friends was like, well, why don't you come to this pancake house? They have an open mic and there's comedy. And I'm like, yeah, no pressure. Like, people are going to be loving pancakes. Like, if I bomb, I bomb. No one's going to give a shit. But I'm also a person who thinks, like, overthinks a lot. So on the way there, I was looking at my material. I was like, okay, I think they'll do well. I'm like, and even if it don't, they're going to be, like, mouths full with pancakes. So whatever. And, like, nobody goes through what your intro is. So the girl introed me as, like, yeah, his father created Crayola. And I was like, man, who is this guy? This guy got to be pretty good. It's like, and then they were just like, no, that's you. I'm just like, my dad didn't create Crayola. I'm just like, you've set the bar shitty, but, like, I can't even do shit.
I don't even have one crayon joke.
No, exactly. And then, like, she's like, oh, well, that's what we do around here. I'm just like, well, I was really hoping for the guy that, dad did Crayola to see how fucked up his life was. But then, so then I go up, I do a few jokes, they laugh, but it wasn't, like, over, like, I'm not, again, hindsight on this is, brutally honest. They could have found it fine, but it was just like, I probably thought that you're going to be like in a Kevin Hart special where they all slapping their knees and they're like, tell another one. Right. And then, like, I was just there, like, you get a few chuckles, you get a few people, like, with their girlfriend or something, like, pointing at you and being like, like, that's a good one. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing okay. And then I just kind of, like, ended it, but I didn't really have, like, a whole tie-in one. And then they just kind of, like, they laughed, but it wasn't, like, the laughter from the beginning. So I was like, oh, fuck that. And then I was like, on the bus ride home, because I still had to go an hour on a bus, I was like, there are going to be people now on this bus that come up to me and, like, you fucking suck, you're shit, you're this, because that's where my mind was. I was like, I'm a big time celebrity now. Nobody said nothing. So I was like, oh my God, I probably just really did bad. But then the other side of it is, like, that bus probably maybe had, like, 2 people from that pancake house going in the same direction. And they probably looked at you and was like, I don't want to talk to him. He's probably he's probably really funny and I got nothing to say to him. Like, that's just one aspect. The other aspect could probably be like, hey, he's probably working on material, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. Like, as an overthinker, I just did it once and I didn't want to do it again. And then there's other parts of it where I just, like, I feel like I'm party friendly or, like, party funny, where it's like, if you're at a house party and you're in a kitchen and I'm just sitting there, I have stories. I will tell you stories. I will be the funny guy at a party. I feel like once you're on stage, people expect you to be funny. Yes. When you're not expected to be funny, you're funny. It's almost like if you go to a game and someone's like Edmonton versus Calgary and they're like, this is going to be a good game, and it's shit, you went in thinking that it was, like, going to be a good game. But if your expectations is like Calgary and Edmonton and, like, both of them are battling for a goddamn last place and the game is, like, back and forth and you're like, out of all the games this year, this was a goddamn good game. It's like, because your expectations were low.
Yeah, that's true enough. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I watched a game 2 years ago. It was Vancouver versus Arizona. And I gave my friend, I guess, my code for like, because they were up in, what was the Northern Peninsula of Newfoundland, whatever, Bradington or whatever. And they had nothing to watch.
Oh yeah. Because
they were at their own little tournament or whatever. So I gave her the code to watch it, and then she immediately turned it off. She's like, "This is boring. This is like this. These are 2 last place teams." And I was like, "All right." I was like, "There's nothing else on, so I'm going to watch it." And it turned out to be a good game. Like, if you just take out the fact that both teams were like out of it, just watch it for the sense of like, okay, let's see what they're building on next year.
Yeah,
it was fine. It was a good game. But like, some people are just like, it's not Tampa versus like Colorado. Like, some of those games could be stinkers.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a lot of stinkers with the top names, man. A lot of fucking too much defense. Yeah. That's too much defense going on. But I mean, that's part of it. Like, that's the game. That's what makes it. That's what it is about all the games, especially like, I'm a huge fan of comedy. Like, I really want to try, but I'm in the same position. Like, I feel awkward about having to get up and be funny, because I feel like I'm only funny in the situation. Like, I can poke fun at the thing or whatever. Like, not just like get up and be funny or whatever. I don't know. It's different.
The expectation.
I got tons of jokes written down, but I don't know.
Yeah, like, I think it's like, I'd always say try it and see what it's like, because I mean, I'd love to go back and just, even down here to do it, but I felt like Ottawa's a good point, because at that time I felt like no one would know you. If you do bomb, it's not like they're going to write home to you and be like, send him back to Newfoundland, he sucks. But I feel like down here, like, you'd never let it go. And I could be wrong, but I felt like if I did it down here, it could be like 5 years down the road, and your buddy would be like, "I was there that night. You fucking sucked."
That's true.
Can you let it go?
That's
it's
true.
Been 5 years.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, and he's like, "Yeah, and you never got back on stage since." And then you go like, "You know what? Fuck you. I'm getting back on stage." And then it's like 2 years after that, and you still fucking sucked. And I'm just like, I wish you'd die.
Fuck off, by leave you alone. At least don't try.
Because I went up there with the impression of like, okay, I don't got material, like I'm not political or whatever, but I was like, I think the more jokes I had were just more or less like, when you were little. And so if you lived around a cul-de-sac, just say, we would play hockey. I had all the gear. I had the nets. So they relied on me to play hockey. There were some days at 2:30, 3 o'clock, I just wanted to fucking come home and watch Family Matters. But no, I get a knock on the door from like Holden down the street. "Tobin, how's your fucking indoor? Are you coming out to play hockey?" And I'm like, "No, Andrew, I'm going to stay in today." He's like, "The fuck you are. You got all the fucking gear and the
Get
nets.
the pads
Come out."
on.
And I'm just like, yes. So then and then you'd be like, "Okay, but you got to promise me this time you're going to help me bring this stuff home." "Absolutely." And then it's like 5:30, 6 o'clock, your mom would call you out because like you got to come home for homework. And because you live in a cul-de-sac and there are only a few houses up, it's not like this is before phones. And it's not like someone would come down and politely be like, "Brian, like, I know you're having fun, but like it's time to come in." No, you'd hear from the house, "Brian, get in!" And I'm just like, "Brother, it's the third period. I don't give a fuck what period it is. You get your ass in." And then you'd be looking at your friends. You're like, she did say get the fuck in, and like I gotta go in now. So like, and they'd be like, "No, come on, stay out for 5 more minutes." I'm like, "You fucking heard her. Like, do you want her to come down?" And then they'd be like, "We don't give a shit." I'm like, "Yeah, because you're not getting your ass smacked if you're late going in." So then you'd be coming home then with all the gear. They all hate you, and then she'd just be like, you'd be like halfway up the road, and then you'd hear the most piercing, "Brian!" Like, "Are you on your goddamn way?" And I'm just like, "Yes, I'm halfway up the street." So then your whole neighborhood hears it, and then it's like, I'm now more embarrassed because now I'm the hockey goalie, but I'm also carrying 2 nets home, 2 like sets of gear all by myself, and I'm doing this halfway down the road, and you can't help me. Like, you're yelling out for me to come in. You like see me hauling the net down here like as a 10-year-old, and it's just like, "Get in. You got 10 minutes. I'm like, "Well, I could be there in 10 minutes if you helped me. Like, come on, equal." Like, I'm gonna be there in 20 minutes because yeah. And then she'd like complain like, "I'm not the one who took him out." I'm like, "And neither am I." I'm like, "Holden took him out," and she's like, "Stop telling him to take him out." I'm like, "You be home at 3 o'clock and tell him no."
I want to stay home and watch Steve Urkel.
That's what
yeah, like TV, you're trying to raise him. You're trying to raise him. You're like, "I'm a good guy." Like, like if you're in it's almost like you're in a wrestling feud. "I'm the good guy here. I didn't want to punch you in the face. You made me punch you in the face." It's like, I'll bring it back full circle to recent events. It's like kids today, when we used to watch wrestling, I used to hate when Stone Cold Steve Austin would like get his ass beat, right? I'd be like, man, I hate when Vince McMahon gets the upper hand.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're a kid.
Yeah.
You believe it, right? But now as an adult, when I'm watching the heels, there are people out there like, yeah, he's a piece of shit. I'm just like, hold on a second. Like when I watched Raw the other night and Finn Balor was cutting the promo on like Damian Priest, I'm just like, again, now we feel like we're in a world where adults just like you if you're a good wrestler, and Finn's a great wrestler.
Yeah.
But when you go through the promo, I'm like, there's still people like, no, you're a piece of shit. You backstabbed Finn, or like Damian. I'm like, hold on a second. Damian had the briefcase, and every time Finn had a title shot, Finn would come out with the briefcase, like almost like he was going to cash in. So like I feel like Finn's justified to be like, you turned your back on the Judgment Day, you won the title. So like in that feud, like as much as I root for Damian, I'm like, Finn's not a heel.
No.
Like you might think he's a heel, but he's justified. Every time he had a title shot, Damian would come out and fuck him with the briefcase or something like that would happen. And like you would be mad after a while, and especially if he then wins it and he gets a title shot. Yeah, I don't blame you, Finn, for coming out and like screwing him over. But people are like, oh, how would you betray him? I'm like, easy. Go back and watch the footage.
Exactly. That's a feud that's kind of been brewing on the back burner for a while. So Finn is due for his championship run again. He got screwed over the first time. He got the Universal title. He fucked up his shoulder and he had to give it up. And
I heard.
Well,
I don't follow, but I heard that story.
It's like Dominic. Like I used to hate Dominic to the point where it's just like I don't get him. I don't like him. He was just, but it was more or less like I was feeding into the fact that it's like, okay, you don't like him. This is working. But I'm like, no, it's not that I don't like him because you know what he's doing. It's just like I just don't like his existence.
Yeah.
But now it's like as a wrestler, I'm like, okay, he's okay, he's decent, but his promo of more or less of why he left Ripley. It's just like, yeah, it's just like she wouldn't let me have chicken nuggets and whatever. I'm like, okay, that's kind of a shitty excuse. Like you're a man. Go, at any time you want chicken nuggets, you have chicken nuggets. But it's like, but then when you look back at it, I'm like, she was always being a bitch to him. She was always always basically putting him in maneuvers and like making him feel vulnerable. And then like Liv's just more or less idolizing him. I'm like, you know what? Like fair play.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, Dominic's a piece of shit. I'm like, well, no. Like, would you take that in your own goddamn relationship? Like, I know it's like, you know, if you came home and like, honey, I'm going to put on some chicken tendies. It's like, no, call me mommy. It's like, oh, mommy, you can like, no. And it's like, and then you got a girl on the other side, like, you can have as much nuggets as you want. I just got you the PS5. Like, you can play Madden all day long. I'm like, I think I'm going with that one.
Yeah.
You know?
No, she.
Like, it sounds.
He had to take the back seat to her, right? So I mean, and Liv Morgan propped him up, right? So it's like, of course he's gonna.
Yeah, and the same thing. It's like people like Liv Morgan's the heel. I'm like, in fairness, go back and look at Rhea and Liv's history. And it's like, I'm pretty sure people wanted Liv's revenge tour at first, and then when they seen it all come to play, they're like, actually, no, like we're not okay with that now. It's like, well, that's kind of how wrestling works. It's like you cannot like when we were smaller, there was no such thing as like, I guess, you know, going online and having your say. It was just pretty much reading the wrestling magazine and be like, I don't agree with that. It's like, and no one's in the room to care. So it's like your own opinion.
Yeah.
But like now, it's like people wanted Cody to win the title. Now that Cody has the title, people are like, no, it's too stale, it's too boring. It's like, buddy, when he loses it, then you're gonna be like, oh, I wish he still had a longer run. It's like you can't please him.
Yeah, that's right.
So just do what you got to do. Like imagine if we had a wrestling community back in the day. It's like, well, Austin has the title too long, and he's bad for wrestling. It's just like there'd be like 3 weeks, and they'd be like dropping it to like British Bulldog because people are like, we wanted a more European champion. It's like, yeah, but now you just killed it. Now you just killed these like momentum altogether.
Exactly. Yeah, people weren't happy with Roman having the title so long, and then when he lost it, now everyone's chanting, "We want Roman back!" Right? So it's like,
and that's what they want. Like that was their whole game plan. From I'd say, and I think Vince messed it up. I think Triple H has done a little bit of a better job. But it's like they wanted Roman to be a face, but like sometimes you need to be a heel to earn yourself to be a face. But I think people, like, if they made Roman a face naturally when he first came in, I think fans would have been fine. But it's just like fans were like, we wanted Daniel Bryan, you pushed Roman. We wanted this guy, you kept pushing Roman. So then they were like, fuck you. Like, we're going to tell you that we don't want this guy. So, I mean, that's essentially how it is. Like, now they love Roman, but it's like they gradually learned to love Roman. Like, I remember watching like Bloodline feuds, and I'm like, fuck, like this is so garbage. Like I'm done. Like Roman's gonna lose, and it's like, nope. And I'm like, fuck. And then when he finally did lose, I was just like, okay, he's gonna go for a way bid. And when he came back, I'm just like, he's gonna get a big pop because people are gonna miss him. And it's not that you don't like whatever his actual name is, but it's like when he had leukemia, it's not like you're like, fuck that guy. He's like the Bloodline tribal chief. It's like you feel bad for him.
Yeah.
So now he's a face. Like people will love him, and it's kind of interesting because the dynamic of Paul Heyman being a face, I don't know if that was ever done ever. Because every time he's come back with someone, it's like Punk's a heel, Lesnar's a heel. When Lesnar started becoming a babyface, he teamed with Big Show, who was a heel. So it's just weird to see Heyman be the face. But I guess like Heyman's just talented enough that he'll make it work. That it's like he'll be more of a, I guess, a comedic face.
Yeah, when he come, like I think the Bloodline put him out for a little while too. So they've both been off.
Yeah.
For a while. So whenever he does come back too, and if he does come back with Roman, it's going to be like, because like Roman's still part-timer, right? He's still
yeah, well, that's true. I feel like I would like him to come back with like Punk.
Yeah.
You know, revive that a little bit, or like team him up with Braun Breaker. But then people are like, now you're just making it seem like he's the next Brock Lesnar. I'm like, but like in a way, you don't really need. Well, I mean, Braun Breaker doesn't really need a mouthpiece. Like I've seen some of these promos there the last few weeks. I'm like, he kind of reminds me of like Scott Steiner in terms of his promos, but they actually make sense. And then it's just, but like his promos
Steiner math.
No, but it's just like his promos make sense, but it's like you get the energy that like this is not a promo. It just feels more natural that like he's telling you.
Yeah.
And like he can back it up. It's not like he's like, you're never gonna beat me, and then you're looking and you're like, buddy, you're scrawny as fuck. Like anyone can beat you. Like, no, he's actually jacked. He's an athlete. And when he's there telling you like, well, it's like, it's nice for you to win this tournament, but you're not getting through me. And it's just like, yeah, absolutely, I'm not getting through you. I'm going to bow out. It's like, you know, it's almost like it's just funny because like some of them can do promos, and it's like I look back at sometimes I'll watch like the Monday Night Wars, and that going to be, I'd love to have a conversation with him. But for Sting, you went from being a very like colorful guy and a mouthpiece to at least for I guess 2 or 3 years, because there was definitely the year buildup where you were just silent. I wouldn't be able to do that for 5 minutes. Like, you know, someone just like, Brian, shut up. I'd be like, okay, cool. Did I ever tell you about this time? They're like, fuck, you couldn't even last. I'm like, no, I couldn't.
I was waiting. I had it already queued.
That was an epic gimmick, though, like when he came back as the Crow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Silence.
Oh, yeah.
It fit. It was perfect, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time. I was right into wrestling at that point.
And Sting, I mean, he came back, I think, at the last pay-per-view for AEW, and like he's still giving her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in. 60. What are you at? What are you at now? 60 odd?
60 something.
60 something years old. Jeez. Yeah.
It's the thing about wrestling, you never
But
know.
the thing with I think the thing with Sting that people appreciate is like he's, I'm not going to say like all these movesets are like high flying or whatever, but it's like he just built a legacy, and that when he does return or does decide to wrestle, it's like it's a big deal. But he's not like mouthy about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like some people are just really mouthy, or you'll check their Twitter and all that, and you're like, oh my God, just shut up. It's like, I get it. But it's like for Ric Flair, like I used to, I mean, I didn't grow up watching Ric Flair in like the 80s, but like when he was with WCW, I was like, okay, fine. When he came back to WWE at the point was like the GM, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Then he joined Evolution. I was like, okay, that's fine. But like when WWE retired him, I was like, perfect. That's a send off. He's still like, you know, I felt like he can't really wrestle anymore. But I was like, now he can just go be a manager. Yeah. Or like, you know, just enjoy it, be a backstage guy, be a legend, shows up every now and again. He's like, fuck that. I'm going to TNA. I'm like, well, smack WWE in the face. And then they had his like final last match. And I think he even said it on like one of these podcasts with Conrad, like many podcasts that Conrad has that are all the same. But it's like, he just says like, yeah, man, that last match is like, I passed out for a bit of time. I'm like, hold on, you passed out? Like your age, and people pay good money. And he's like, yeah, but I'd totally do another last match. I'm like, no, fuck off, Ric Flair, fuck off. Like
fucking Rick.
He's at the point now where it's time to really stop. Just don't even think about it.
Yeah. hang him.
There's gonna be like a dark side of the ring on Ric Flair where literally he dies in the ring, like because that just feels like where it's going. Like Ric Flair's just gonna be like
he's a menace, man.
Everyone always has one last match, eh? Everyone wants one last one. One last go.
And that's the trouble that I find. Like when you compare generations, like I know people will say, like this generation of like kids and that stuff now, like they'll look back at ours and be like, well, you're a bunch of tools. And then we look back at our parents and be like, well, wow, that was really stupid. But I'm like, even back in the day for like the 80s wrestlers, like Roddy Piper had a last match, like whether he announced it or not, like same with Macho Man. But like now, like when I look back and there was like Trish Stratus's, what I call her last match, and Stone Cold Steve Austin's and whatever, I'm just like, that's a good ending. Like The Rock finally beating you at a WrestleMania and you're on your way out, good. Trish winning it, like the title, and then vacating it, fine. Like those are my last matches. And then the next minute, it's like, just because it's a big payday, it's like, Trish is coming back to team with Lita and Becky Lynch, and I'm just like, why? Like you don't need to. Or it's like Austin faces KO, and they're like, man, it's a great match. I'm just like, is it though? Like, is it? It's not prime Austin.
No.
So then, like when you look back and you look like, when was Austin's last match? Like, his last match against Kevin Owens. It's like, no, fuck. It's like it was shit.
And even like the Undertaker, he had his last match was that cinematic one at WrestleMania, I think it was.
Oh, but yeah, Taker's always looking for that classic last match. It's like, Taker, do you realize that you had a classic last match? Like, you know.
And then comes back and does the Saudi Arabia show. And it's like,
give it
that's
up.
mega payday there, right?
And now I heard because he's got a podcast and stuff, and he's been talking about, I'd like to do one more. I think I got one more in me. It's like, come on, like
take it easy, Taker, buddy.
You're taking away from the
takes away from the legacy too, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Well, but it's just like when he went, and again, sometimes it's their pride, but it's like when he lost at WrestleMania, which people can debate about, like to Brock. I felt like if that's the way you go out, okay, your streak is over. You're still in good enough shape that if you wanted to come back every now and again, fine. But like it's just for an appearance with like a beatdown or something. Like the other night when they had Bret Hart on, like Bret Hart can't take a bump.
No.
So it feels bad. Like you got him in the ring, but when Gunther's coming in, like you're not going to try to kill Gunther. But at the same point, it's like, who's taking the smacks? So Sammy comes out and pretty much, beats the piss out of Gunther. But it's like, Gunther could have easily just beat the piss out of Sammy and laid him in the ring. Yeah. And Bret like look at him and be like, okay, this guy is a menace, But like, if they had someone that could take bumps, like it's like Taker. If Taker retired after Brock beat him, you could still have Taker show up every now and again and take a few bumps, still overpower the person, but at least he's taking some impact. Like there's nothing worse than when guys come back and they can't take anything, because it's almost like, well, what is this segment really? It's like if they bring back Austin in like 20 years, hopefully he's still around. But it's like you grew up on the badass like Austin. If he couldn't take a bump, he's just in the ring, and then whoever it is, like, I don't know, could be, maybe Roman or whoever the next one is, LA Knight or something, could be in the ring defending Austin. You're like, this is sad. Like, it's not sad because, like, there's a younger generation, like, this is cool. Like, LA Knight is the guy. But, like, you're just like, but this was my guy. This was my Austin that should be kicking ass and just staying home if he can't take a bump.
Yeah, I don't want to see that stuff. Like as a person who doesn't watch a whole lot of wrestling now, but really watched it in the 90s and early 2000s kind of thing. Like I don't want to see Steve Austin roll up and fucking The Rock or whoever. Even The Rock. I don't really want to see The Rock roll up now. Technically, I mean, like he's definitely in shape enough to take some bumps and whatever. But still, I still don't really care for that. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna, and like you were saying, Brian, is like if you're gonna put a guy over, that's the way to do it, man. Last match. This is the next guy.
Pass the torch.
Yeah, like really put that guy over. Like that was a classic way of kind of going out. In the old days was like, okay, we're gonna put the new guy over by losing to the new guy. Yeah, I think right. That's the way it should be.
And that's where The Rock is now too. I find like he will be back for the next WrestleMania.
Oh yeah,
he's probably going to do a little thing with Cody Rhodes. I think maybe I don't know, but.
I feel like it'll either be Cody or Roman. They'll build it up. Like if it's Roman, I feel like they shouldn't have a title involved. If it's Cody, it will probably be a title. And I don't know how they'll work that one out. But it's like last WrestleMania, it's just like the biggest kind of, I guess, like balloon busting moment that everyone was kind of upset about is like you had Taker show up to do a choke slam to The Rock, and apparently it was supposed to be Austin, was supposed to be in the works, but they couldn't come out with a payday. I'm like, are you fucking joking? I'm like, you couldn't come out with a payday for Austin? And then maybe Austin was asking for a load of money, but I'm just like, really, Austin? You get on your podcast, and like Austin's my favorite, so I don't care. Like people might be like, well, it sounds like you're just being bitchy to Austin. Like, well, I'm sure he could take it. But it's just like he goes on his podcast and he'll talk about all the regrets he has of like not putting Brock over. But in fairness, they wanted to do it on a Raw. He wanted to do it on a pay-per-view, so good for him. Yeah. And then there was one where he walked out, and then The Rock kind of cut his promo of like, if you don't want to be here, stay the fuck home. And like then he regretted that one. But I'm just like, Austin's not an idiot. You gotta kind of protect your name at some points. But the biggest takeaway I felt like at that is like, Austin, like they're putting you in a WrestleMania moment that this generation will remember for a while, and you're worried about money? Like, was it like, how big of a difference was the money? Like if someone ever leaked it, it was like, yeah, it was about like $500 or $5,000, or like, it depends on the amount of money. But to me, I'd be looking at it from like Austin's perspective of being like, you gave me so much of this business, I gave you so much. Yes, fly me in, pay for the flight, pay for my meal, put me up in a great hotel, blah, 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 and I will gladly do 2 seconds of a stunner
in the main event
and leave. In the main event. It's not like it was an opening show.
Yeah. And
I guess that's another, but like, they're not asking him to go 20 minutes in the ring. They're literally saying, Rock's going to come in, try to beat his ass, glass shatters, you come out. You don't have to run out. You can walk out like, like you're intimidating. Rock gives you the look like he did to Austin or to Taker. Do the stunner, leave. It's like, really? That's the pay? Like,
Yeah.
God, there's certain jobs that like when Chris Jericho does these podcasts, he doesn't have to set up the guests. He doesn't have to do all this shit. He just shows up and leaves. So, if WWE ever had, or anything, literally, if some podcaster was out there like, Bryan, we're going to fly you into LA. We're going to do an interview with you for like 10, 20 minutes. We're going to give you this amount of money. I'd be like, awesome. I wouldn't look at him and be like, you pieces of shit. Like, I'm not doing that. I'd look and be like, awesome.
Another $1,000.
You'd be saying,
give me another $1,000 on God.
Give me a hell,
right?
yeah.
Like, come on, because you know what I mean. In today's context, $1 million is $1,000, to us or whatever we want to look at it. Like, so that's probably what it would all separate. It was nothing in reality.
Well, it's like if you told me to fly out to Alberta right now to be on your podcast, and like just say I had like a gimmick for being Tobin Tonight, or you're just like, can you at least say that line like from something that you say on your podcast? We'll give you this amount of money. I'm not going to look at you and be like, oh, fuck that. I'd be looking at me like, yeah, absolutely. Just pay for my flight, give me a hotel and a meal, and I'll do it. Like, and then some people are like, oh, well, you're a sellout. It's like, no, I'm not. It's literally like I'll enjoy doing it. It's something that I enjoy doing. It'd be different if it was someone's like, we want you to go into the ocean with sharks. I'd just be like, you couldn't fucking pay me enough.
No.
And they'd be like, well, they're not going to bite you. I'm like, I'm not taking that risk. It's like people think they can go down and see the Titanic and see how that works.
And that man's a billionaire.
Yeah,
screw that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah,
noise.
sometimes I think we're smarter than the billionaires.
Oh, money will corrupt your brain, my friend. For that old shit, you think you do anything, you're fucking invincible if you got lots of money, right? Because you just use tossing money at things. It's exactly that, right? Like, fuck that. That submarine's $1 million. Give me 2. Fuck yeah.
Dad said to me the other night, he's like, I don't understand why you'd want to go down there. He's just like, you can look that up on YouTube. And I was just like, I gotcha. I hear you. But he's like, I said, some people are just like, they want to see things, in the flesh or firsthand. And Dad's like, I don't get it. And I'm just like, no, that's fair. You probably wouldn't. I'm just like, but if we had $1 billion, I'm just like, you tell me that you wouldn't want to fly out to see, I don't know, like he likes boxing. So if there was like a big boxing match or something, he'd be like, absolutely. And I'd be like, what about if someone said you got to take a private jet? And like, that's not necessarily up to standard. And Dad was like, I'd take the chance. I'm like, and you're a fucking idiot.
It's the same thing, but that is the same thing.
Yeah. It's like Kobe. It's like, I love Kobe, but it's like, it's got to be a certain point that Kobe had to be like, taking a private, was it like a private helicopter or whatever? It's just like, dude, I understand you like your privacy, but do you ever just like want to just second guess things and be like, you know what, maybe it's not a bad idea for this time around to maybe not do this, or like, you know, I get it. Like we're not celebrities, so obviously we can't really get into that world, but like I give it a lot more thought or mindfulness when a celebrity is on a local airplane or if they got their own private jet, but like, you know, that, you know, they're taken care of in that private jet. It's like, fine, whatever. But when they're reckless and stuff, I'm just like, boy, it's like, what did you expect to happen? Like, people like, it's sad that you're gone, but it's like, all that just for a little bit of privacy.
Yeah.
Like, don't you live in a mansion that no one can be around? Like, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, I could be wrong, but doesn't like Drake live somewhere in like Toronto in his own like secret community? Like,
oh yeah,
and he's still taking private jets. I'm just still like, okay, fine. But like, then there's other celebrities that are like probably way more richer than them, and you'd see them on like, you know, their own, like, I'm not saying they're going to be on like an Air Canada flight. They're still going to be on like a expensive flight, but like there will be other people on that flight.
Yeah, there might be 20 people instead of 5 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, I don't understand why you risk that just to do it like yourself.
Yeah, if the weather's bad, the pilot's going to say no, we can't fly. It's not going to.
Yeah, and then but there's still be a celebrity. It's just like, no,
I'll take
we're
my own
flying.
time.
I paid you all this money to fly. So do you want to be fired? And then they'll feel like, oh, that's my job. I really like this. And then it's like, well, there you go.
You just flew into the side of a mountain.
Yeah, now we're fucking around.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck?
It's like,
yeah, that's fucked.
The one that I look back on, and I remember at Mon, you had to pick your courses. So I picked one that was like the history of music. Now I was a little bit devastated that we didn't go into the 90s and 80s. They kind of stopped at the 70s. I was like, you motherfuckers! Like, I'm not even born around any of this stuff. So they did one on like Buddy Holly, and more or less how the whole promise was. He was like, one of his buddies was kind of saying he was taking the flight, and he's like, well, I hope the plane crashes, and the plane does crash. But it's like, it's just like, you know, we didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
And you're just joking around with him, but then it does happen. But it's just like, but for the sense of like, there was a whole lot going on that they were like, just take the goddamn car. And he's like, no. It's like, all right. Pure stupidity. I think even Reba had one that she, like, I guess in her early career, her plane went down. I think Ric Flair had one too. It's almost like
Ric Flair did,
you know,
one.
You get lucky to survive. I'm like, didn't you think that would be a lesson into you? Like, okay, not doing that again.
Yes, man, and that's a common celebrity death by plane or whatever, helicopter or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, and I think some of it, to be fair, comes down to a lot of the probability, right? Like, I don't take fucking 3 flights a day. I've never, and I never will, other than like going to one place and the flight's got to join together. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't take private jets and that shit. So like, you take fucking whatever 4,000 flights, and the odds are 1 in every 10,000 one. You're going to be one of them ones, man. Eventually, like,
maybe, yeah.
It's just part of the deal. I feel, right, and it's stupidity, like I say, and I've heard it's just a sole convenience factor.
Yeah, like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Leonard Skinner,
Leonard Skinner, basically. Well, like, 2 boys survived.
So like, here's the one that I'll look back on that like it's kind of, how do I express it? It's depends on like your insight. Some people be like, oh, you know, it's kind of like, it's a dark, funny story, but like to some families, obviously, no, it's not. So you got to be careful. But it's like, I remember when in Ottawa, now it could have been 2013 or 2014, they had like the O train and the bus crash. And that was out in, I can't remember the place, Barhaven or so. So anyway, at this point, it's like 8 or 9 in the morning. I'm still asleep in my room that I'm renting for like $500 or $600, which is definitely overpriced. And I get a text from Mom. Now, I don't see this text until like 10, you know, but it was like, Brian, where are you? Like, and then I got like 3 missed phone calls from like my brother. So I answered them around like 11 o'clock, but like, they probably thought, and this goes to show you how much they don't pay attention to my goddamn life. They thought that I was on this bus or train going the total opposite direction at 8:30 in the morning. Carleton is only like 20 minutes away. I could walk it, but they thought I was going to Barhaven. So in my mind, I'm like, you know, I'm waking up at 11:30. You see 3 missed calls and a missed text. So you answer it, you phone them, whatever. But in like the dark sense of humor is like, for 3 hours, they probably thought dead or like, you know, like I'm like somewhat in this car wreck or whatever. And then like for me to respond like an ordinary everyday, you're like, yeah, I'm okay. Then they're just like, what the fuck, Bryan? Why didn't you respond? Like 8:30 in the morning. And then you're getting mad at them and they're being sympathetic because they thought you're dead. Yeah. So like you're there like, you're like, no, well, I was sleeping. And they're like, we thought like we're over here having a panic attack. I'm just like, for what? For what? And then when they told me, I'm just like, Mom, I'm like, Barrhaven is in the whole other direction than Ottawa, like where I'm to. And then, like, why I say that you got to be careful with it is because one of these guys that was in my film studies class actually was on the bus and he like passed away from it. But like, I didn't know him well enough. But like, you know, in your first weeks of school, you kind of get to see some faces. You glance, you might give them a head wave or like hello. And I think it was like the third or fourth week of school. Maybe it only been the second week. But like I was kind of getting to know him. Like I never had a conversation with him, but I knew he was in my film studies class. I knew he was in like our little lecture group. And I might have given him a head nod like 2 days later or like 2 days before. And then when it all happened, I was just like, damn. I was like, I don't know you that well, but I was like, I still feel like that's impactful. So I couldn't imagine what like his family and friends went through. But like, I'm like, well, if they're anything like my family, I'm like, they're definitely just trying to check in on him to see if he was like okay. But when I replied to my parents, they were just kind of like, what the fuck? Like you couldn't, I'm just like, dude, you can't alarm a clock to like set up at like 8:30, by the way, Bryan, your parents are going to like contact you to see if you're alive. I'm just like, okay, that seems odd, but I'll wake up for that. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's true. There's a roundabout humor and all that, to be fair about it.
Yeah. Well, like even they had in Ottawa, I was at a Loyalist, and then they had I think it was like the shooting at where they had Remembrance Day, where they had like the soldier. Right. And I checked in with a few of my friends to be like, yo, like I know it's Remembrance Day. I don't know if you're down that way, but like I've heard, and like no one responded to me. And I was like, okay, they're all dead. But like it just ended up being like they didn't know who the fuck I was because they were just like, dude, we've shared one class with you. Who are you? I'm just like, okay, that's hurtful, but I don't know what's more hurtful: the fact that you're alive and you're roasting me right now, or that like I thought you were dead.
I'm trying to be fucking sympathetic, man. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm trying to be sympathetic to you, and you're still roasting me. It's like there's a part of me like, you know what? Fuck it. We're like go find a shooter, like whatever. But it's like, you know, like yeah, like see if I care. But I don't know. Like I find there's times like, you know, if we were in a situation at Loyalist, like if we had a lockdown, I would just be concerned. Like I know my parents would probably check in on me, but there's a point in time like I'd be like, and who else would probably text? I'm like, I don't think anyone would. So I just be like, okay, that's my impact. Like my parents would check, no one else would. But then you're like, well, that's kind of sad. I'm sure people would think days later. I'm just like, yeah, but that's normal. That's normal for people to check on you like days later because they're just snoopy.
That's right. Family
like I've checked on people's Facebook like for less or for, you know, way less, where it's just like, yeah, she's in hospital right now with a broken arm. Like, go on Facebook and be like, okay. And then what happened? Tell me more details. Oh, no more details? Then you go like try to find out details. Like, she just fell off her bike. Oh, she'll be fucking fine.
It's like, not interesting at all. These comments we're reading.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You made it sound like it was 10 times worse.
Yeah. Someone's going through a divorce, you check and see, oh, she removed all the pictures.
Yeah. Oh, it's a picture of just her and the kids. That's it now.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed that when you really do not give a fuck about what anybody thinks, like, and this is specifically when we were younger, like I don't have to do it so much now because there's probably like, man, I'd say too much energy, but you could have like a friend that you know in high school or junior high, whatever, and they've now been married. But if you go back in time on their Facebook to like 2015, there are still pictures of that person with their second or third boyfriend, and there's still comments below of that boyfriend being like, love you to the moon. I was like, really? Like, you're now married with 2 kids. You couldn't go back in time and just delete his pictures? Like, too much effort.
I've thought of that quite often, to be honest. I'm like,
that's really
how
funny.
Fucking cringy it is to like when see someone, oh, they're in this new relationship, they got new pictures taken together. And then if you go back far enough, 2008, 2009, here it is they're in the club with this other boyfriend, big smooch or whatever, and the comments, oh, I love you.
Can't wait to go out more than 8.
With my man, right? Like, oh my God, you couldn't take 2 seconds to delete that?
Yeah. I know a girl that like anytime that like she's got a new boyfriend, whatever, like instantly you can go in her Facebook and it's like the moment it happens, all that other stuff is deleted. And I'm like, I used to be like, okay, like, geez, relax. But now I'm just like, no, like that's her preference. That's good for her. No one else can like, if they just know her in 2020, they don't know about 2017, 20, whatever. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like that's her thing. Like
Yeah.
I do, but I don't bring it up. I'm just saying like, I know, but when you leave it up there, it just, yeah, it feels weird. Like, and I'm not making fun of specific people because I've had to go through my Facebook and just delete stuff that I didn't like. And then years later, I'm like, oh, I kind of wish I kept that up there because it was like, it wasn't even that bad. But like,
Yeah.
I'll go through certain people's timeline and it's like the Pixo phase, I call it, where people were like, taking their pictures, putting like lyrics to them.
Yes, sir.
And then like, just like putting all these filters on. And then we complain about kids today using filters. I'm like, kids today use better filters,
Yeah.
but our filters were just kind of like making us look like we're like fucking coming from a Disney movie or something,
Oh,
right?
some
Like,
of us nuts, and then you get crazy ones that add
like,
flower effects and all this madness, and then you got like your
Yes,
uncle
but,
that takes
like-
a picture of his chin, and he got flowers and a thing around it. It's Halloween.
yeah, like I've got
You know what I
one
mean.
where I've got like hair that's down to here, and like I call it like emo hair,
Yeah.
and like I've got a Detroit jersey on, and like it's just in front of you wouldn't be able to see it because I had so many filters on, but it was like it's just in front of a porch. But I put like Hockey Town, Detroit Red Wings going all down the side, so all around it looks like a frame, and it looks like it's like red and blue, and it just makes it look like I'm like Superman coming out of a movie. and I liked it, and I was like, I'll keep it. But there are other ones that I'll look online, and it's like someone will have quoted like lyrics from like Mayday Parade or whatever. I'm like, man, you were really, really timing yourself there, like, with certain lyrics.
Oh,
Like,
man.
it's like back when you had MSN, and I thought it was the coolest feature in the world. Because again, when I first got MSN, I was probably like some kids now that have Facebook and they're like 12 or 13. They're not really on Facebook; they just have it.
Yes.
So that's how I felt like with MSN. Like I know where my friends are, but when it becomes like 8 p.m, I'll go on MSN, just like keep the conversation going for a half hour. But I didn't know. Essentially, like my brother was like flipping out at me. He's like, "Okay, you got to come up with an email." I'm like, Curtis Joseph 31. And he's like, "No, you can make your name whatever." He's like, "But your email." I was like, "What's wrong with that?" He's like, "No, it has to be you." I was like, "Okay." So I think it was like Bryan Tobin at hotmail.com. And then you'd be adding people on MSN, like your girlfriends in school. It's like Hot Angel Chick. I'm just like, why did they get to be called Hot Angel Chick? And I just got like, I got the most boring name ever. And then when you sign in, you're like, I used to just change it to Cujo with 2 lightning bolts. And I was like, man, that's a sick name. But then they added the feature that you could put like your own personal message. And people used to put in fucking lyrics.
Yes,
and
buddy. ICQ.
Yeah, and one girl lived down the street for me, and she used to this will time it now, but it's like Black Eyed Peas, Where's the Love?
Oh.
And I think it's like, people killing, people dying, children hurt, women crying. And she used that as her like lyric, but like she just liked the song, but I took it literally because I never heard the song. And I was like, you okay down there? Do you want me to come down and visit? Like, what's on to go? And you're like 11 or 12, and you're just like, is everything good? It's like, your parents okay? And she's just like, it's a goddamn song, Brian. I'm like, what song is it? Because it sounds kind of deep. It sounds kind of deep for us to listen to. And like years, and then years later, I'm putting up where it's like, I wish, or was this like that tonight the headphones will deliver the words I can't say. And someone was like, oh, that's deep. And I'm just like, no, it's Fall Out Boy. Like, fucking get the back straight. Like, I didn't come up with it. It's Fall Out Boy yet.
That was wicked.
Fuck, Brian. That's funny, man. Good old internet days, eh? Like,
Oh man, the old internet days. Oh man, there's nothing quite like that.
No, but it's like, it's all a learning experience. Like we look at like the generation now, and they're all big on Snapchat and stuff, which is fine. But I remember when people used to block you on MSN. So they used to just go appear offline, online, appear offline, and it would just keep on popping up on your thing. I didn't know how that worked, so I literally would fucking sign out and sign back in, and then I'd be like, man, these people are fucking fast at typing. I'm like, fuck. Like, I'm trying to remember my password, sign back in, and I'd sign out, and I'd be like, sign back in, and I'm just like, you can hear me like typing, and I'm like, man, fuck, they're getting more sign-ins. How are they doing this so fast? And then my friend's like, they're just appearing offline, online. I'm like, what the fuck? I've been doing that the whole time. I'm like, my fingers are burnt here.
Yeah.
I could have been sneaking a peek at your lyrics, everybody else's lyrics, and they didn't even know.
Yes. Well, the other thing that I think is really crucial that like MSN has this that I don't think Facebook and that does now is like people know when you're blocked on Facebook. Like even if you have someone blocked, they can just ask their friend like, hey, is that person online right now? Can you go into the friend? It's like, yeah, I got them. It's like, well, I can't even fucking search them. But like back in the day, and again, I guess it's a naive, you could be like, yo, Melissa, what's your Hotmail? She'd be like, hot cutie chick 32. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to add you later. And she's like, sure. And then like you never see her online ever. Right? And then it'd be like, and then you wouldn't know because it's not like you're going talking to her every day. And it's not like you have like mutual friends that you can check in on. So it's like, yeah, it's like I add you, you're never on. It's like, yeah, I'm never on. It's like I'm only on at my aunt's house. I'm like, okay. But it's not like you're going to go to someone else in your class. It's not like you're going to someone else in your class like, yo, did Melissa talk to you on MSN? It's like, no, because now it feels like you're letting people know that she's probably played you. Yeah. So you just sit there and appear offline. And I'd be like, oh, okay. She's like never online. She told me she's at her nan's house. And the next minute you go over to a friend's house and then you'd see them online. And it's like, you can't tell your friend you know that, but like you go home and be like, oh, it's so fucking crushing. It's like they didn't accept it. Right. But it would take months before you realized it. Now it's like instantly it's just like, do you have Lee on your Facebook? It's like, yeah, let me look it up. Motherfucker, I don't got him. And then you go to, and like now we're in a whole world where you just make a fucking fake account and be like, you motherfucker, you deleted me off your account. It's like, well, actually, no, I didn't. It's like, no, I did. And then you show them a screenshot, and then it's like, okay, like, you know, I have people on Facebook that send me requests that like I don't know them, so I just don't add them. But I'm sure there are people that I added, and then when you go back to check it, all you see is messages. Like you can't, like, you know what I mean? Like you can send them a message, you can't add them, and then there's a part of me that's like, okay, like fuck, I guess I know where I stand with you.
Too telling. This is too telling here.
Yeah.
Or if you see a picture with a bunch of people, if they're mutual friends or whatever like that, you'll see all their names and they're all highlighted, but then there's one that's not highlighted and you can't click on it. Yeah. It's like that motherfucker blocked me.
Well, it's just I think it's just the generation now that we live in. Like I don't know. I don't go around surveying kids about like, hey, do you know, like, how do you feel about social media? But it's just like, I feel like now it's a lot tougher for them, but they probably have an understanding of it a little bit more too, of like, I have you on this app and that's the only app I'm talking to you on, right? Like it's Snapchat. And then everything else is kind of like, no, I don't want you on this app, where we were kind of like in the society where it's like, if I have you on this app, I got to have you on all these apps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's way different now with TikTok and the Snapchats.
But like, I don't know. I think it's sick that it was at a station. You know what I mean? Like your computer was a station and you get up and go away from the station. And it, like, I mean, yes, we spent a lot of time sitting there, but still you still had to get up out of it and, you know what I mean? You have to get up and do something.
Well, that's it. Like our was in my older brother's room. So you'd be getting up at like, and it kind of feels, I don't know if you guys have like brothers or sisters or like, if you're the oldest, but it's just like, I would get up in the morning. It'd be like 8 or 9 in the morning. Now my older brother was like probably at MUN at this point. So he's in university now. He probably enjoys his sleep on a weekend, So you're getting up at 9 in the morning and just like knocking on the door, like, Sean, can I go on the computer? I gotta check my MSN. And then he'd be like, ugh. And then you'd hear mom just like, let him on. And you'd just be like, oh. You come in and he's like, don't make any noise. And then you're like on the keyboard, you're like you're like really quiet. And then you check a few messages and then it's just like 9 in the morning. There's like hardly anyone on, but you're like, you'll have a chat with someone. And then next minute you'll hear your brother like, can you not type so loud? I'm like, this is the only interaction I have with people right now. Like, you're like, what do you want me to do? And then it's just like, just calm the fuck down. I'll be out of this room in like 15 minutes when I figure out where the fuck Ashley and her friends are to. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm gone. Like, relax. But then like, but like, that's it. Like we used it as, where are you guys meeting? What's on to go later? Okay. Are we playing ball hockey? That's it. Like, it was almost just like the same way as what texting, I guess, is now as adults. Like you text a friend and be like, yeah, I'll see you Friday at 10:30. Like you don't keep the conversation going. That's what Friday at 10:30 is for. But now this, I guess, like this generation, just like, my Snapchat streak, it stopped at 100. I'm like, what does that mean? It's like, it means we were going back and forth for 100 messages. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, you could have been just hanging out with that person. I was like, dude, but the streak is everything. I'm like, no, it sounds like you're losers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 100 straight days of bullshit.
Some bullshit. Yeah.
And that's it. Like, it's literally like sending a picture of like a mouse. It's like, this is what I'm at right now. I'm playing Minecraft. And then you send a picture of a mouse, and the other person sends a picture of them eating food. And it's just like, you guys are going to create this like self-absorbed like generation that's just like, all right, Natalia, we need you to work today. No, I gotta send a picture of me working and then I'll work. It's like, you're fired. Okay, picture me fired.
It's psycho. It is psycho. Like, I don't know. To me, it's because I got kids. Like, I got an 18-year-old and a 6-year-old, right? So it's like two weird dynamics of.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I mean, Hunter doesn't really partake in any of that stuff, but like, it's still there, right? Like, I mean, he's just text people and whatever, right? It's really different. Like, it's just the interactions are different. Like, I mean, he spends more time talking. I mean, I know, like, we're kind of seeing each other in a weird way, and it kind of feels a little more human in a weird kind of way. But like, he just sits playing a game, talking to his buddies all the time, and like, to him, that's socializing. Which I'm like, dude, man, you don't have any idea. But like, no, that, like, to him, that's socializing, right?
Yeah, it's I guess it's in weird, a weird way. Like it's just, I think like COVID did a lot of people in of how they interact with the world. But I think for us, like, everything changed in terms of like, what your philosophy is as adults. But I remember when we were smaller, and again, you might remember this as well, but like, you would go out, you would spend the day outside playing like a game or something with somebody, and then later at night, you'd go over to a friend's house for a bit. Like, I remember in a given day, in a given weekend, after school, it'd be Friday, you go out and play ball hockey. Okay, Friday night, Disney or something might have had a movie on. So you're going down to your friend's house in their basement to watch the movie. It's over at like 11:30. You're going home. Saturday, same thing. You get up, play ball hockey, do whatever, go on bikes. And then I'd say around 7 or 8, like, you go home for a bit, obviously. But like, my friend up the street would have SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, and he had like the multi tap.
The multi tap.
So then you could plug, you could plug like 4 or 5 goddamn controllers in there, and then you felt like you were at a goddamn party. Like, you go down to like your local like Marie's or whatever and get a bag of chips, and then you'd all kill each other in like an elimination chamber, and then like friendships would be destroyed because it's just like, you said you weren't going to spare me with Goldberg. Like, we're the only fucking 2 left, okay? Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, then it spirals off. You're wrestling each other in the room, trying to knock the head off each other.
Yes. And then like, you'd find cheat codes for Here Comes the Pain, like getting out of the chamber and like all that. And then it'd be like the funnest shit in the world. Yeah. And then like, you didn't think about nothing. No. Then you get like a phone call from like, their mom would reach out to your mom or whatever and be like, okay, everyone's going home. Or they'd call there and be like, can you send him home? It's like 10 o'clock. And then like, you beg to stay for a half hour. They'd allow it sometimes. But like, it was like the most fun, like, because you're actually interacting with friends. You're in their presence. And then you'd probably like learn stuff that you probably shouldn't know, or stuff that you're okay with knowing. Like, they might have like a magazine, that's like Teen Bop. And you're like, who the fuck is Jesse McCartney? And he's like, my sister has that magazine. And then next minute you're like, that's the guy who sings Beautiful Soul? I love that song. And then they'll be like, you're gay. You love that song. I'm just like, well, I can see it on your like fucking iPod. And they're like, yeah, my sisters. I'm like, no, everything can't be your sisters, dear Greg. Like, like, it's okay to like them. You don't, like, I'm not making fun of you. I just said that I liked him, so I don't understand why you were getting more defensive.
No. Yeah, you probably learn a few things. Yeah, you probably... Yeah, that's
some things you don't know.
An older sibling, too, like, that was not, like, really way older, but, like, 4 years older. Like, that's a perfect... way to get exposed to something you shouldn't be fucking even seeing.
Yeah.
Bullshit like that.
Yeah, I had 2 older brothers, so it was like, probably heard some shit. Probably shouldn't have.
I have brothers that are like 10 and maybe 12 or 13 years older than me. So there's a good age gap. But like, sometimes in hindsight, like, they opened your eyes to stuff that you definitely would never. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's like stuff that you over time grew to like. Like
Mm-hmm.
my brother, the oldest one, before we'd all go to school, he get a shower, had a CD player in there. I don't know how he didn't get electrocuted. I really don't. But like, and like whatever CDs he got from like, I think there was once a time you could order CDs.
Columbia House.
There you go.
Columbia House.
And like I got introduced to like the Goo Goo Dolls, Celine, Lisa Loeb, and like you're listening to it like again like from I'd say I was 5 or 6, and you'd be like Stay, or you know something from Celine, and you're just like this is weird, like I don't like this. But then you like hear Goo Goo Dolls, and it's like I still remember to this day because he loved Goo Goo Dolls, so it'd be like Name. And like I would just be like, man, this song is very depressing. And you're like 5, and you're like, because you're used to hearing Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, right? And now when I get older, there's like literally lines or lyrics in that song where I'm just like, fuck, that hits hard. That hits hard as a 30-something-year-old. Like where it's like, we grew up way too fast. I'm just like, yeah, you tell him. It's like, there's nothing to believe. It's like, you're right. There's nothing to believe. It's like, reruns now become our history. I'm like, well, a lot of reruns on TV, but oh, you mean in life? Like reruns of like running into the same people, all that shit. And I'm like, God damn it. I'm just like, you're hitting the mark.
I'm dancing. I don't even like it.
That is a banger. Or I'm crying. Yeah.
I'm crying and I'm dancing. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I'm crying. It's a bop, but I'm crying.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll tell you an example. Like for our generation, like I grew up on Miley Cyrus from Disney. When she came out with like her kind of like weird stage where it was like, I'm in the club with my J's on. I was just like, damn, Miley, like these are bangers, but I'm just really concerned for you. And then she comes out with like Used to Be Young, and I listened to that a few times, and I'll be honest, it's like I was like, my God, Miley. Like, you're getting old. That means I'm getting old. And it's like, yeah, I used to be fucking fun. I did used to be fun. And then it's like, now I feel like I'm still fun, but I'm old. And it's like, when you listen to some of those lyrics, I'm just like, damn, Miley, like you hurt me. And the next minute you like turn on like Noah Cyrus, and she's just still like, stay young forever. I'm just like, Noah, like you're young. You're the next generation. I'm listening to Miley. Like I went through stages with Miley, you know? So when she's singing about like, you know, I used to be crazy. I'm like, damn right, you used to be fucking crazy. I was concerned about you when I was 22. And now she's like, I'm 30 odd years old. I'm singing country music. I'm doing okay. I'm like, I'm glad for you, Miley.
Yeah.
But that means that I've also gone through that stage with you. So well, I'm old too.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Oh, buddy.
It is important to get those musical influences from your older siblings. Like my brothers, they had my oldest brother. He was in the Metallica and stuff like that, so I got a little bit of that from him. The second brother, he was into the grunge, and then we post a lot of that grunge kind of stuff, Nirvana, Soundgarden, stuff like that. So I got that from him and stuff. But you carry that on for almost forever though.
Yeah, that stuff hits the hardest, I feel.
What do you got?
Yeah,
you're changing the background.
Just yeah, like my phone was getting low on battery, so it's just like I'll just get the charger. But yeah, no, it's I've had this conversation with Rick, and I've said it too. Like when Much Music used to have the countdown, I would walk out of the goddamn room when like Third Eye Blind would come on, or like Our Lady Peace, because I'm just like, dude, I'm not depressed. I'm a kid. Like I don't get it. It's like when Our Lady Peace is like, we're all innocent. I'm just like, I don't even understand what that word means, but this music video is weird, so I'm walking out of the room. And now when I'm older, I'm just still like, yeah, we all are innocent. Or it's just still like semi-charmed kind of life. Like, yeah. And like every time I forget until someone brings it up that song is about drugs, I'm just like, dude, I just thought it was about him having a joyful day and people were just pissing on him. You know?
I was just having a good time and everybody else is angry.
Yeah, it's just like I'm just having a nice day and you're kind of shitting on my day. Like, because again, I grew up with like Much Music to the point of like whoever was on like the top 10 would more or less be pop. And then even when you turn down like YTV's hit list, then you'd see bands, and I don't know where they came from. Like, because I'm like, why don't Much Music have it on? But I'm like, good for you, YTV. But it's just like, I've heard of BB Mac. I've heard of like O-Town or like Bewitched, and they're like from UK bands. And I'm just like, cool. I'm like, I like this stuff too. And then every once in a while, I guess YTV was more like kids based, so you wouldn't see, more of the grungier side. But sometimes you like, again, you flip over to much music or something and you're just like, yeah, I don't really understand this song or I don't understand this music video of how this relates. Like, but then at the same point, I think Britney Spears has a song Stronger, and it literally starts with her seeing her man cheat on her, and she goes, whatever. And then she starts singing about how she's stronger. And like, she's like half dressed in it. And like, you're like 10, you're like, I like you, Britney. Like, I don't know why I like you, but like, I get it. And you're like being a strong, independent woman and whatever. But it's like, someone's like, so why does that not bother you? And I'm just like, because it's Britney, bitch.
It's Britney, bitch. That
Britney,
phrase will live forever. Yeah.
So
Britney's going to be on her tombstone, and there's going to be like fans that'll come, a public meeting or whatever for fans, and then they're like, it's Britney, bitch. And someone's like, man, how disrespectful. It's like, no, she probably wants that.
Yeah.
Like, she probably like,
that
she
right
probably
on
enjoy that.
They'll probably write that right on her tombstone. It's Britney, bitch.
Yeah, right on there.
Yeah, she'd just be like, that's great. She'd be like down. She'd be like looking up in heaven and just be like, well, as long as I don't have to spend or like pay Kevin more fucking alimony.
K-Fed.
K-Fed.
Yeah, K-Fed. A story about K-Fed is, I remember when he first had his song out, whatever his hit was.
Popo's out.
I loved it. I love that song.
It was a banger.
I forgot all about it, man. That's my good. Holy shit.
Popo's out. Ooh,
Dude,
yeah.
go back. No. Go back and listen to it now and tell me it's a banger. It is not. Like, I remember being 11 years old at Christmas, and like, I was going around the house like, get your friends, you get your friends, I get my friends. Like, and then now when I go back and listen to it, I'm just like, dude, this feels like John Cena in like 2002 coming back.
Yeah, that's,
Like,
to be fair, I haven't listened to it in 20 odd years, but
no, exactly. There are songs that you liked as a child that it's okay to say now as an adult that you did not like. Like I like Ashley Simpson, but I didn't like it enough that I felt like my mom needed to go get me the CD for Christmas, and she did. It was just like, Mom, like, I like Pieces of Me. I like that when it's on the radio. I like it if it's on a rainy day and you're listening to it. And Mom's like, you'll love the CD. And I'm just
The
like,
rest are wicked.
no.
she had one heck of a SNL experience.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, I think
She should have been on Who's Line. If she did those moves on Who's Line, that's the hoedown.
That's right, too.
The hoedown. Yeah, that was huge. That was like a real pop culture moment.
It was, yeah. It was a defining moment to a certain degree, I think, because it ended was like, well, who the fuck else is doing that?
Who else is?
Well, how many other emo bands might be using backing tracks, right? That everybody had to defend their fucking live performance.
I just felt bad for her because she did, like, she had a few nice songs, and like nowadays you look back and it's like everyone does it. Like, you go, Olivia Rodrigo, I'm sure, does it on her tours when she just has to like make fucking wardrobe changes.
Oh yeah, man. There's no way everybody's singing all that shit.
No,
that shit.
Exactly. Like there's YouTube videos that you can see when Miley was still being Hannah Montana, where they show basically a stunt double coming because she turns her back. They bring her down this like alley, and while her back is turned, someone else fills in for her because they don't see the face. Like, they're just showing like Miley dancing in the back, and then like she does a wardrobe change, and I'm just like, okay, like. And then people are like, I can't believe it. It's like, what? You can't believe that Miley took 10 minutes at most to go get a wardrobe change? Come on. It's not like she left the concert and left you with like, you know, someone completely different. Like,
check out Karaoke Miley.
Yeah, or it's like Jesse from Jersey, you know, like, you know, so it's just stupid. It's like bands take breaks. Like, if you go to a concert, like, and it's a 2 or 3 hour concert, there's somewhere in between that they'll take maybe 5 minutes just to be like, hey, we're just going to change a few things, or, you know, while we're getting ready, like, they'll talk their way through it.
Yeah,
but you know that's what they're doing. They're stalling, you know. I think people's like the audacity of people to be like, how dare you sing for 3 straight fucking hours. I paid for this. It's just like, and you're still seeing them. It's not like they're performing one song and they're like, hey, did I ever tell you about the time that I was like, no, I paid to see you sing. Like, stupid.
Remember when?
Stupid. Yeah. Well, it's like if you go to a comedy special, like, or I guess a comedy show, there is a warm-up comedian, because that's what they do. They want to like warm you up to like, okay, let's get you laughing. Let's get you in a good mood for when the actual comedian comes out, or like the guy who gets paid more for some reason. But it's like, you know, that's what they do. But I just think it's funny when people are just like, a comedian's telling a story and people get upset where it's like, oh, I've already seen this on YouTube. It's like, yeah, and you've fucking seen Nickelback sing like Rockstar like 800 times, and you're just as thrilled when they're doing it live in concert. Like, it don't make sense. It's like a different standard. Like,
that's true.
I've gotten to see Jim Gaffigan in Ottawa, but I've also seen Jim Gaffigan on like YouTube forever. And yeah, he did do new material, but he did do some of the old ones. And I wasn't offended that he did old material. I was like, oh my God, I actually get to see this live. Like, let's see if he tells it a little bit differently, whatever. I had a buddy that went to see, I think, Louis C.K. He went to see Tubi sets. Like, he went back to back just to see if he did anything different. And he's like, no, literally, like, the way he presented himself, the way he talked, all good. Like, it's almost like it is a routine. That is essentially what it is. And he wasn't offended. He was just kind of studying him. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I think the way that they do comedy now, which not necessarily the veterans, but I think what's his name, Matt Riffle or Matt Rife?
Matt Rife, yeah,
like
crowd work stuff.
I think he's an interesting example of like to study, because like there's a part of me is like, well, how fucking good are you? Like, we can't see your actual goddamn material. Like, but then there's another part that's like, you know what? Like, that's fair. Like, if you want to go see what he actually talks about, go pay. You know, why look at it on YouTube? Like, he's smart in that sense. But like, his crowd work makes me want to go see him. You know, like I seen one today that he like had he took someone's cane. It was all, what's it called, bedazzled or whatever, and he like pretended like it was a gun, and he's like, sorry, it's very American of me. And I was just like, oh my God. I was like, fuck, that's like on the tongue. And he was like, it brought me back to when I was a schoolboy. And I was like, man, I was like, Jesus Christ. It was like, but it's a part of like, people will laugh at it, but it's like, I guess that's kind of the idea of what people like. It's like, I'm going to a comedy show to hear their jokes, maybe to get slightly, you know, hear somewhat of offensive stuff.
Yeah. I like that. I like it. The closer to the edge it is, fun. Like, to me anyway. Like, it's not funny unless it's a little bit risky. Because what's the point? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel about it.
I do like the edgier type.
Oh yeah, give me something. Make fun of me. Even go ahead, do your thing. Like, I like that. Like, I like it when it's edgy. Like, because it's not funny. Like, you're not doing anything then, right? It's like music. If you're not progressing something, there's, you know, it's not like it's pointless necessarily, but there's no flavor, right? Like, it's not as funny. It's not as good. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's, I don't know. It just, it all depends on like essentially who you kind of go see. Like, I never got my brother did, but I never got the pleasure to go see like John Panette when he was alive to perform. But my brother says he's like really like super funny. And like, I'm just like, well, I was like, I felt like saying it to him. And then, but my brother's like really strict in terms of like, he's very by the book, but I was just like, man, fat people are usually funny. Like, you know, that's just what it is. And then he would have been like, Bryan, you can't say that. I'm just like, well, tell me a fat person who isn't funny. Like, you know. And then you would have had him beat. He would have sat there for like 10 minutes and just be like, well, this guy. And it's like, he's pretty funny. It's like, you might not like him, but people do. It's like, I think like Kevin James. I'm just like, King of Queens. People like it. So, you know, people go back to watch Grown Ups. Now I know Grown Ups is more of an Adam Sandler. And I think if Kevin James was in it, it was supposed to be Farley. So I get it. But it's like, you know, it's not like they just phone up a random on the street. Like, yo, you could fill this part. It's like, no, Kevin James has to have some audience that find him somewhat funny.
Yeah. I enjoy Kevin James.
I like a bit of Kevin, but yeah.
He got a little bit fit there too for a little while, so maybe he's not even exactly
Bring the Pain.
Yeah,
that was a good flick too, actually.
Yeah.
The Bryan, I gotta wrap it all back up here now. What do you got when is the pod coming back on? What do you got coming up down the pipe here?
I think I'm trying to get episodes ready there now. I'm hoping like probably October. Because, like, I know you got to do episodes, you got to edit the episodes. I have, like, maybe 4 or 5 kind of pocketed so you can kind of, you know, build up more repertoire. But, yeah, I'd say probably early October. And then, like, most of the ones that are going to be on to begin with are people that we've had on prior, but they've just got new stuff on. Like, I think there was, like, Mass and Olds. She's always a good interview. I think she's actually out your way, like out west. Sub Radio, like they're from the States, but like they recently got a nice break for themselves. Like I don't know the guy's name. I should, because people are like, what the fuck? Like you're in music and you don't know stuff. But like apparently the guy that did albums for like Yellow Card, like Ocean Avenue, Fall Out Boy, I think his name is like Neil something, but apparently they're teaming up with him, and that's like one of their most respected person, like producers for music that they wanted to get involved with. So they're teaming up with him to create a album.
Nice.
So I'll have them on, and I'm sure Quote the Raven or something will be on again at some point. But yeah, it's just trying to build up some repertoire and like get new people in. But again, it's like I find it interesting because when people are like, well, you're inviting back some of this, and it's like, yeah, that's allowed. You can do that.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, we've done it.
We do it. Yeah.
We're only 60 episodes in. We've done it. Like, why not?
Yeah, like late
night fucking podcast. I'll do what I want.
Fuck, leave me alone. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like late night shows do it all the time. So I don't know why people are like just like, well, he had Scarlett Johansson on like 5 years ago. It's like, yeah, and she's done more work.
A lot of
she's probably done something else since then, I would imagine, right? And the people just got something else to talk about, right? Like that's I don't know, what's the fucking difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you'll reach out to me in like 2 weeks' time. It's just like, Bryan, you want to come on again? I'll be like, well, I got nothing else to talk about. Well, let's go.
Try it again.
Let's do it again.
Yes, girl. No, it's wicked. Yeah, so that's what you got going on. What's your favorite pod so far that you've done? Or that you don't have to be a favorite, but one of the cooler ones that you've done.
So I like the Bob Saget one for like sentimental reasons, because like Bob Saget, I refer to him as my TV dad, because I used to watch him on like America's Funniest Home Videos, on Full House. He did the voice work for How I Met Your Mother. So like at all different points in my life, I felt like he was involved in it. I'm pretty sure when I told him that, he was kind of like, okay, fuck you, like you're weird. But like, I think he meant it like in a nice way. I don't know how you take it in a nice way, but I'm sure I'd find a way. And so that one I really liked for a favorite. I like Colin Mochry's one just because, again, I grew up on Whose Line, and it was like an early episode. So like, obviously, when you go back and listen to your earlier stuff, you're like, fuck, like I sound so shitty. But like, he was like very nice about it. He did tell me a few times, he's like, oh, well, that's a good question. And I'm just like, fuck off. It's probably not a good question. You're just trying to like, string me along. But,
keep me happy here.
But it was nice. Like he gave you detailed answers. Like I think I asked him something about like what part of Whose Line did he not like, and then he was like, oh, it's like when they do the musical stuff, because he's like, I don't think I could sing, and I was like, I thought you did pretty well. And he's like, oh, you're doing a lot for my ego, and I'm just like, shut the fuck up, Colin. Like we understand that you're probably not a singer, but like you bring a lot more to that show than like some of those people do. Like I mean, they're all bringing stuff to the show, but I'm like, Colin was just so quick-witted. Yeah. To the point where it's just like, dude, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah, I agree with that.
He's definitely a legend.
Yeah, he's a gem. He's definitely a gem, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and he was one of your earlier wants on there too. So of course that would be one hell of a
gift. Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, I'll go back, and some people like in my class when I used to have because. Obviously we're still at Algonquin when these first ones came out, and then I interviewed Max Kerman from the Arkells, and one of the guys in our class really liked him, and he listened to it and he's like, Bryan, you sound like you're not interested. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm just like, let me go back and listen. And then it sounds like I just rolled out of bed, and I couldn't give two fucks if he was Max Kerman from the Arkells or Max from down the street. And like a part of me is just like, well, that's just Newfoundland, we don't really give a shit. But then the other part of it is like, you could at least try to sound lively. Like, what he could have been like, but he's like, man, I got a new album out. And you could be like, man, that's really sick. Like, can you tell me about the album? But no, it would sound like me like, yeah, man, that's sick. Tell me more. It's like, I don't feel like telling you more. You don't seem interested.
It's hard, man. We cringe at our earlier podcast,
Jesus,
too. Cause
it's no guest most of the time. It's just me and Ryan fucking getting half on the beer and
shooting the shit,
going off and talking about all kinds, you know what I mean? But it's entertaining in a different way. But that's kind of the arc of the pod so far.
Evolution of
one
it all.
Thing, now it's become a whole different thing in a way. But that's fun. I like that. That's fun.
Well, I mean, that's it. Like, I would love to and like I'll say it, and I could do it down the road, but like I would love to do that, where it's just like you sit and have a conversation with your buddy, but like back in the day, like, oh, well, you know, like talking about your experience as a child, like not in the, like, let's get into the weeds, just like telling like stories about like, you know, like I told you about like the ball hockey story, and someone else could like leave a comment below and be like, man, I remember playing in like Minnesota, it'd be like cold. I'm like, oh, these are interesting stories. But like my biggest fear of like doing stuff like that is like I just can't do it by myself. And when I try to get people like my friends involved, they're either like not podcast people, they are more or less behind the scenes people, or they just don't know what they want to talk about. Like I try to do ones when we did like hockey ones, we're close to trade deadline, and a few times you'll go back and listen to it and you're just like, yeah, we know that. Like they just reported that. Like you're just saying, it's like, don't you have any insight? My insight is, well, Rob said, and I'm just like, don't give a fuck what Rob said. What's your input?
Yeah, it's true though. Yeah, it's a different animal. I don't know. It depends on your angle, right? Like, I don't know. That's just what we did. And then one day we're like, we should fucking try to have people on.
Yeah.
And we start reaching out. Yeah. And it's kind of how it all went. Which I assume is probably as close to, you know, if you're not a fucking already famous person or whatever, is probably close to how it goes for most people. Is well, let's try it. And then it turns into whatever, you know.
Yeah, like I'd say like most, like there are groups on like Facebook and stuff that it's like podcast guests or promote podcasts, and like there's people all over that will take guests on and stuff. Like I look at that and I'm like, dude, that sounds fun because you're gonna meet other people, but the other aspect of it is it's just like, you know, you kind of feel like, okay, I need to promote something that people know too. Like, you know, it's no good at me being on like 20 or 30 podcasts and like they don't post anything, or they just post like something that's like not, I guess, and it's not like I'm saying clickbaitish, but like something that's relatable. Like if two guys are from Minnesota talk about Minnesota hockey, it's like, yeah, you're going to get people from Minnesota. You might get people that like hockey, but there's a whole other audience out there that if you broadened it, you could, you know, reach. Mm-hmm. But again, it depends on everyone's like, what their topic is. Is like, if someone had to ask me like in an email, like, we're going to do interviews about UFC, would you be interested? I'd be like, I don't fucking know. Like, they'd be like, what do you think about this guy? I'd be like, I know CM Punk wrestled in UFC. Do you want to talk about that? And then the next minute, like, the video seems to be stopped.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. And like, and that's kind of our angle. We just kind of leave it open. We'll just shoot the shit. We do research on the other person, and then we kind of use our knowledge to continue the conversation going. Yeah. Is really what it boils out to, which is fun. But Bryan, man, we'll let you go now. Probably 4:30 in the morning now, is it?
No, it's close to 1. I'm just surprised that no one heard the dog, because I had closed the door, but the dog's at the back, or the dog's like outside the door going like, let me in. I'm just like, fuck off.
There's one here.
We're gonna let you in.
You probably were hearing mine from the. They're doing. I got 2 doing the same thing.
Yeah, trying to get in.
Yeah, my dog's so used to coming to bed with me, and it's probably used to the door being open, so he'd just be down here sitting. But the other dog that we got probably gives him a hard time. So I was just like, I didn't want 2 dogs going around, and I'd be like, yeah, so I started the pod, and I'd be like, shut the fuck up.
That got easy. Yeah. But Bryan, man, it has been a wicked pleasure talking to you here tonight.
Yeah. So Tobin Tonight, Spotify, YouTube, TobinTonight.com. Check it out. Let's do it. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, yeah, guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you as well. Like I said, when we start getting our episodes up to date, maybe we'll do because I usually try to change things up around Christmas, but maybe we'll do like a Christmas episode and include you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck yeah. That'd be fun. Total down.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
We'll do some screeching in.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll have like other people on the podcast and be like, we're going to screech in to be like, man, this is some fucking lame ass shit. We don't even get to screech. I'm like, virtually,
man.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Yeah, that sounds wicked, man. But
right, well,
enjoy your night, buddy.
You guys have a lovely night.